What is going on, everybody? I am live for a very special show today. We are doing the official awards show for the channel from the 2025 NFL season. Man, I'm really excited for this one. I did honestly a lot more research than I anticipated doing. I didn't even know I was really going to do this show, but I was just sitting there thinking, I feel like the season goes so fast. We go deep on all these teams, covering all 32 teams. It can be easy to kind of gloss over celebrating an all-pro team and really highlighting the guys that had these incredible seasons and giving them their flowers. Not just Pro Bowl, but these all-pro teams, these are guys that even set themselves apart from the other Pro Bowl caliber guys, the actual Pro Bowl caliber guys, not the Shedeur Sanders of the world. But we know the Pro Bowl itself can have some memeability about it. But anyway, very much looking forward to today's show. Excited to be doing this live with you guys here in the chat. How this is going to go, I am going to go through first team All-Pro, then I'm going to go through second team All-Pro, and then I will do my awards for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, all the way down to Executive of the Year, one that I have glossed over in the past. I will occasionally be interacting with you guys in the chat as we go because I think it'll be fun kind of as we go player by player, position by position to see what snubs you guys think there are. But if you guys have any super chats or anything like that, there's a place for that here in this show. And thank you, by the way, if you do want to show your support through those super chats. But once I get through the awards ceremony, I will start getting into super chats. We'll catch up. I'm going to dive into the Patreon mailbag as well for those of you supporting on Patreon and a part of that mailbag benefits. So very much looking forward to that. And I also plan on at least giving some of my thoughts on the Week 18 that we saw, at least some of the more meaningful games. Full disclosure, like I said, ended up spending a lot more time preparing notes for my All-Pro teams that I ran out of time to actually take notes from Week 18. So I'm going to be kind of firing from the hip my thoughts from some of these Week 18 games at some point in this show as well. So very much looking forward to this. Thank you for those joining live here. Before we do dive in, I want to thank the sponsor for today's show. It is SeatGeek. My friends over at SeatGeek are here with the #1 ticketing app out there. They provide the best app with the best user interface. As long as you know that green means good and red means bad, you are good to go. Just look for the green dots in their app, on their website. You know you're getting the best bang for your buck, not just on SeatGeek, but market competitive prices as well. I'm always out there looking for tickets on all the other apps, and I always find myself back at SeatGeek because I love their app, and the tickets are always at worst competitive, but typically even the best. They also give you the tickets right there in your app. I've had frustrating experiences, whether it's other concerts or sporting events, having to have this, multi-chain email trying to find my tickets or having to download them onto my, documents on my phone or whatever. None of that with SeatGeek. Stress-free experience approaching the gate. So SeatGeek is the best app. They've been great friends for me to work with for years, supporting this channel. This week, they just hooked me and my wife up with some tickets to see the Carolina Panthers playoff game. So huge shout out to SeatGeek. Show some love back to them if you guys are going to, if you're balling out and going to NFL playoff games to support your teams, NBA, NHL, and full force concerts, give some love back to SeatGeek as well. And with code TFG10, you'll save $20 on that next purchase as well. So thank you to SeatGeek for helping bring this show to us here today. And let's go ahead and begin. So first team All-Pro. This is a big deal. This is not just Pro Bowl. This is the creme de la creme, the best one or two players at your position, especially for first team. And let's begin with quarterback, of course. We're not wasting any time with this really epic debate this year for first team All-Pro quarterback, which inevitably will tie right into the MVP conversation as well. And we'll see if I end up picking someone else for MVP than who I pick for first team All-Pro. Historically, most voters out there, which, by the way, I don't have an All-Pro or an MVP vote, but if anybody at the Associated Press is watching and wants to include me next year, consider this my application. I would love to participate, but who needs you anyway, right? Who needs the Associated Press? We have the TFG YouTube All-Pro team. That means way more than the Associated Press, right? But anyway, people that vote on that award typically will go with the same person that wins first team All-Pro to win the MVP because it's a quarterback award, let's be honest. But last year, it was really close between Lamar and Josh Allen, and it actually split. So I'm curious, not just from my own show, from your guys' perspective, but I'm curious in real life to see if maybe we do see a split again where Stafford gets one and Drake May gets the other. That's obviously what we're debating here, is those two quarterbacks here for the first team All-Pro. So before I show my pick, I put this little graphic together just with some of the more meaningful stats for these MVPs, just to kind of highlight where Stafford is winning in some categories and Drake May is winning in others. So Stafford beats May in passing yards, but once you include the rushing capabilities and impact from Drake May actually has more total yards. But for total touchdowns, it is Matthew Stafford over Drake May, even including the rushing touchdowns. 46 total touchdowns for Stafford, no rushing for Stafford, whereas Drake May had 31 passing touchdowns and 4 rushing, both through 8 interceptions. Now, this, I think, is the biggest difference here, the big-time throws, which I do value as someone that has seen the process for how big-time throws get charted at PFF, what needs to be seen on film from a team of trained employees to register a big-time throw. It ain't easy, man. Those are the high-level NFL, super throws, basically. Whether it's threading a tight needle into zone 15, 20 yards down the field, a deep out, accurate deep ball, that kind of stuff. So for the big time throws to be that much further in Stafford's department, which is about double, and that is, I see some people in the chat saying show attempts. Well, the percentages are there for you. So almost double the big time throw percentage. Over Stafford over May. Then you go to turnover-worthy play percentage. May has a very slight advantage, 2.7% to 2.9%. Again, having seen the process at PFF, knowing how that works, I do really like the turnover-worthy play metric that they chart. So they're very tight there, but May has done a slightly better job taking care of the football. Then you look at EPA per dropback. This is not a PFF number. This is from Next Gen Stats. Drake May has the advantage at 0.28 to 0.2, and both of those are number 1 and number 2 in EPA. Although actually Jordan Love might actually be number 2 ahead of Stafford there. But then the PFF grade, which I've always said, quarterback and pass rush grades are the best grades from a PFF standpoint. I really like their process to evaluate film. So with a 93.5 for Stafford to a 90.1. But you can see that it is very close. I think it is tough to quantify Drake May's rushing abilities, right? If I pull that back up, Stafford blows away May from a passing yardage perspective, but he makes it back up with the rushing. It's hard to really quantify that, but it does certainly, for me, play in Drake May's favor here. I'll just say it because I know what you guys are waiting for. I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford for first team All-Pro, and this is one of those things where you have to eventually pick somebody. I said it in the Discord today, which, by the way, if you guys want to join the TFG Discord, I highly recommend it. I don't plug it enough, but I do have a Discord server. The link is in the description down there below. I don't know if Brandon is a mod here or anybody else wants to share an invite in the chat for you guys, but we were talking about this a little bit, although I think that was actually my Madden League Discord now that I say that we were having this debate. But anyway, I will plug the channel Discord as well while we're here. But I was saying it's like it's not even 51-49% for me. Like, this is a dead heat. This is the Kentucky Derby, and both horses, noses are weaving and bobbing in stride together. It is a very difficult choice to pick, whether it's first team All-Pro or MVP. I think it realistically is the same debate. I ultimately just have to sit back and for me, kind of remove some of the numbers, because I think the numbers are so tight. I just have to ask, who do I think played quarterback at the highest level this season? And I think it is Matthew Stafford. And I think that big time throw difference really is what captures it for me the most. Oh shoot, I just totally spoiled that. Nobody saw that. Eeks. I pressed the wrong damn button. This is why we need a live editor. Hopefully you guys weren't looking. Don't rewind 5 seconds if you don't want the awards to be spoiled. But the big time throws is what I was saying. I think you load up these guys' tape week in and week out, and for me, it is not to take away Matthew Stafford, not to take away Drake May and the incredibly high level he's playing at. But I think you take Stafford and stack him up week after week after week. The incredible throws that he has logged this season, whether it is just needling it in between zone coverages, all of these different, high degree difficulty zone coverages that modern defenses are throwing at you. The way that he's so dialed in, these 17 play drives as well that he's been able to put together and just dominate games with the offense. Not to mention the deep outs and the precision on go balls to guys like Devontae Adams this year and Puka Nacua. I just think there's been a little bit more eliteness from Stafford than there has from Drake May. You have to get into the schedule conversation on Drake May, and anybody that's picking Drake May in this argument is going to say it's the NFL, you play who you play, blah, blah, blah. That's just not how I view things. I have no horse in this race, but look, the Patriots hardly played anybody this year. I think that does matter. And by the way, I did check something. I didn't include it in the graphic there, but when you look at the EPA per dropback there, when you remove games that are, if you chart this or filter the EPA per dropback to when the score is within 14 points, it's actually a .01 difference. Drake May goes down to .23, and Stafford actually goes up to .22. So I think that also reinforces kind of the idea that Drake May is making a lot of incredible plays happen when you're against really bad teams and the games are out of hand. There's just a little bit more with that than with Stafford. So that does matter to me. And I'm just going to lean with Stafford here for the first team All-Pro. And obviously Drake May is going to get second team here, and it's just one of those deals where you got to pick somebody. That's going to be my pick, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think and who you would pick. I might even have to run a little poll on Twitter or something just to see where you guys land with this. But let's go ahead and carry on now that is out of the way, because that's going to be the most controversial one, I think. But I am excited for you guys to chime in the chat with who you think the snubs are as we go here. And some of these are going to be longer conversations than others. But for running back, sorry, I got to kind of be the executive producer and the analyst here. But for running back, first team, I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. I think he really pulled away here in the last 5 months, 5 weeks or so, because about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did my running back tier maker video here, and it was like Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor all like in that debate for like who the best running back in the NFL is. I think if I did it again today, I had Gibbs number one back a few weeks ago. I think I would flip it now and put Bijan number one. He's the leader in scrimmage yards. I think from start to finish was the most impactful running back. not to take away from Jahmyr Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor. Those guys were obviously special, and Christian McCaffrey as well. But the week in, week out consistency from Bijan, the level he's reached, the LaDainian Tomlinson comps on him, and starting to make like spectacular catches as well down the field, like really getting involved as that double threat running back out of the backfield. Some of the different formations they're able to bring to the table while bringing in someone like Tyler Algier with him. Bijan Robinson, to me, is the first team All-Pro this year as the scrimmage yards leader, falling 2 yards short of a 2,300-yard season. So a hell of a year for Bijan. Congrats to him on what I think will be his first team All-Pro. And that's the other thing with this, by the way. I'm really excited because I've never put this level of research and prep into this list. And I don't think I've ever done it this soon before the All-Pro teams get announced. I'm really excited to take my list and compare it to the actual list when we get there. Not necessarily like going for accuracy, but seeing kind of where I differ from who wins. All right, so at wide receiver, this one's really, really easy. I mean, you guys could flood the chat and nail this with probably 100% consistency on who the first team All-Pro wide receivers are. They're both in the NFC West. And it's Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, does anything else really need to be said? I think they were both about 300 yards above the next players down. So there really wasn't a debate there. And even outside of yardage, I mean, how well these guys have played. Jackson Smith and Jigba being fully unlocked as a complete number one vertical threat, a complete number one and a vertical threat. Like, you just can't say enough about his ball skills, his overall just, I mean, it really is like, not to use a Madden term, but like just the game awareness for him, his ability to just, it feels like the game moves in slow motion for him, whether he's, trying to assess DBs and their coverage and what angles he needs to take to out leverage him to get open, or just the way it feels like the game slows down when the ball is in the air, and his ability to just kind of feel it in and contort just kind of feels like he's able to slow down time and make those plays. So, I mean, JSN and Puka, man, I think Puka's made his case for who the best wide receiver in the NFL is. I mean, obviously, for this individual season, you can debate these two left and right, and that's totally fair, but Puka's backing this up with an unbelievable year last year as well, far beyond what JSN did last year. So for me, like, to be the king at the position, to be number one at this position, I do want to see multiple elite years. But what Puka's doing this year, man, a historic year in contested catch win rate, being unlocked as a vertical threat even more, just the utter dominance, the way that he's able to outmuscle guys and contort at the sidelines, just a ridiculous season from him. I mean, there's not a huge difference between like Puka Nacua this year and like Jamar Chase last year, if you just really are honest about what their skill sets are and how dominant they've been. So pretty easy choice there for wide receiver, just as it is at tight end. Very easy decision here. Trey McBride, the only tight end in the NFL with over 1,000 yards. If George Kittle was able to, not miss 6 games to start the season, it could have gotten interesting because Kittle is still, the best blocking tight end in the NFL. But yeah, Trey McBride is plenty good as a blocker on that Cardinals team to be so dominant. I mean, he's a huge reason why their offense was competent in many of their weeks. This one I feel like doesn't need a whole lot of further explanation. He was the best tight end in the NFL this year from the eye test, especially as a receiver, and like the stats, it's just no debate. No one was, I think, within like 300 yards of him for tight end, and nobody else over 1,000. So there's your tight end. Now this is the fun part: offensive line, a position that doesn't often get its runway in the football analysis world. So I love a show like this to be able to highlight some of these guys. And we have a Protector of the Year award this year that I definitely didn't spoil like 10 minutes ago. Let's get into it. First team All-Pro at tackle. kind of usual suspects here, but well-deserved. I think you guys know I'm not going to just put guys there because of their name. I think a lot of that happens at offensive line where guys just get put in because they are former first-round picks or they've done it before or whatever, and you don't really take a thorough look at if they were living up to their high expectations, and maybe other guys should have been considered. That's not the case here. I mean, heading into the year, I probably would have said the two best tackles in the NFL are Trent Williams and Penei Sewell. Maybe Lane Johnson, but he's missed some time, of course. But Trent Williams and Penei Sewell are my first team offensive tackles. And, you know, these guys just left tackle, right tackle, they're just utter dominance. You look at Trent Williams, he is third in the NFL in pass blocking efficiency, so he's top 3 as a pass blocker, and I will be mentioning pass blocking efficiency a good bit throughout here. I think it is probably the best stat that you can find for pass blockers. Sacks allowed, if you look at, I think PFF's charting of sacks allowed is pretty good. I don't really trust a whole lot of other, sacks allowed charters out there, if you will, because usually it's just looking at the dots, and PFF's actually looking at the film and saying, okay, did the quarterback give the tackle or the pass rusher an angle, or was it a protection thing that wasn't on the tackle's fault? So I don't really look at sacks allowed all that much. I like to just look at pressures allowed. I think that's a much better kind of one-on-one pass blocking look at this thing. So pass blocking efficiency is quite simply pressures allowed per pass blocking snap. In fact, it sounds more complex than it is. Pass blocking efficiency, very straightforward. So third in pass block efficiency for Trent Williams, but that's not even what he's best at, right? Like Trent Williams at his age, 38 years old or whatever it is, he's still the focal point of the Niners run game. Their ability to just get behind him, whether it's gap or wide zone or on a screen or crack toss, whatever it is, he still has multiple pancake blocks every week. He's still one of the best athletes at the position in the NFL. He's on that next plane of existence in terms of Hall of Fame careers, especially now that he's, we were debating Harrison Smith on Twitter this week about is he a Hall of Famer? The longevity's really doing him a favor, or Frank Gore gets brought into that equation. Trent Williams has the Frank Gore, Harrison Smith longevity where he continues to be a productive player late into his 30s, except he's continued to be the best or top 3 best at his position into his late 30s. It's just unbelievable. I think Trent Williams is year by year here, cementing his case as what are we talking about here? One of the best non-quarterbacks ever to play, the best offensive lineman to ever play. We are really entering some very special territory with Trent Williams. And then the other guy I would say here is Penei Sewell. So he was tied for the fewest pressures allowed in the NFL, right up there for pass blocking efficiency, as you would expect there. And his run blocking has even surpassed Trent Williams at this stage. I mean, Penei Sewell, the way he's weaponized in that Lions run game, in the screen game, the athleticism out on the perimeter, the way he can square up cornerbacks and then he just kind of flicks his wrist and they go flying backwards. He's just unbelievable. The developments he's made as a pass blocker speak for themselves. I will say with Penei Sewell, there's still a couple glitch snaps where it's something goes wrong, and I think some of his losses are a little bit more ugly than if you load up Lane Johnson's losses or something like that. But the total of his losses are obviously few and far between, tied for the fewest pressures allowed among tackles in the league this year. So Trent Williams and Penei Sewell are first team All-Pro at tackle. Then you go to guard. And again, kind of usual suspects, although one guy here is a guy that would not have been my choice over the last few years to be a first-team All-Pro, though he probably was still voted because he's one of the most beloved offensive linemen I can remember, and that is Quentin Nelson. Getting back in here into the first-team territory, I think he has had his best year since year 1, year 2. I mean, I spent a lot of time on this channel saying hey, he's kind of overrated, getting penciled in as first team All-Pro every year. Not this year, man. He was second in pass blocking efficiency for all guards. And that's where, I mean, he's been into the like teens and 20s for pass blocking efficiency for a few years. Like he's been a very beatable pass blocker for the last 3 or 4 years. This year was way more locked in that department. And then from a run blocking perspective, he's always been great. But I feel like whether it's he's healthy or more locked in this year, which is certainly possible, but I also think getting like Tanner Bortolini consistent next to him and that offensive line playing at that level, I feel like we got, again, that all-pro highlight reel machine that Quentin Nelson is when he's at his best as a guard. Like I can't say enough about how well he played this year. So he makes it. And then Joe Thuney, what a move that was for the Bears. He keeps doing Joe Thuney things. Yet again this year, he finishes number 1 in pass blocking efficiency among all NFL guards. You really just didn't have to worry about him there. And that's not a surprise, but he was really good as a run blocker, even at his age, into his 30s. No drop-off in athleticism, a challenging run scheme that Ben Johnson demands a lot of these guys. We saw that Bears offense really one of the better run games in the league. Joe Thuney was a big part of that. Even if he's not like this physical dominance on the ground, I think just the soundness of his run blocking, not blowing assignments, knowing when to come off blocks on duo and all that stuff, Joe Thuney absolutely deserves it. So there's your guards. And then the center is, I mean, it's chalk until someone takes it. Creed Humphrey is playing this position as good as you can. He allowed 8 pressures this year, guys. 8 pressures allowed for Creed Humphrey. That's less than 2 a game. I'm sorry, that's less than 1 every 2 games is what I meant to say there. Like you go every other week and he might not allow a pressure. Like it's just absurd how locked down he is. You do not get through this guy. You do not get around him. And we know how good he is as a run blocker. This dude's a brick shithouse. He's smart. He's tough. He's got a great targeting system in the screen game. He's the best center in the NFL. And I think you can certainly beg the question of him being further ahead of everybody else at his position than anybody in the league, if that makes sense. The only other guy is probably Fred Warner against other linebackers. But I think you can make a case that Creed Humphrey as a center is that. And it's just crazy that the Chiefs haven't put a better running back behind this guy, because you would probably talk about him even more if you had an explosive back and an explosive run game, because he gives you such a good opportunity to do that. But they just haven't gone that route. So there's your first team offense. Let's go to the defense. And I've seen a couple super chats come in here, so thank you guys. Again, I will get to the super chats when we get through the awards show here. I just want to keep things flowing here. So on defense, at edge, obviously Myles Garrett's going to be in here, but the other choice is going to be Will Anderson Jr. And I think Micah Parsons going down for the last month, he would have been here next to Myles Garrett, but it is going to be Will Anderson who actually edged out Myles Garrett in pass rush win rate this season. Anderson was first in that department. Another PFF metric that I love is pass rush win rate. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but that is literally just film junkies going in, charting their pass rush wins. When you get a one-on-one rep, do you win it or not? And I think it's fantastic that we have access to that. So you have your number 1 and your number 2 in true pass rush win rate here. 3rd in pressures for Will Anderson, 4th in pressures for Myles Garrett. But obviously Myles Garrett breaks the sack record. Very happy to see him do that. By the way, did you guys see whatever defensive tackle it was high five the ref after Myles Garrett got the sack record? That made me laugh. But yeah, pretty easy choice here. I mean, Will Anderson in a normal year would be a defensive player of the year candidate, but of course Myles Garrett breaks the sack record. Anderson taking that next level up from being a legit, like year 1, really good player, like really good number 2 in his first year. Year 2, he takes a leap to like, that's what a number 1 pass rusher looks like. Then this year, he took that leap into the Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons realm of existence. Obviously, the number one pass rush win rate speaks for itself, but his bull rush, dude, it is right there, I think, with like Jared Verse for the best bull rush in the NFL. And he's not only gotten better at that, but the way Will Anderson is now setting moves up, we know he's got the quickness and the bend to threaten the corner and win with inside counters. He's the absolute complete package. And I think Will Anderson now like gets put on that list of like, it's only a matter of time until he gets his Defensive Player of the Year award, which, spoiler alert, I mean, I don't think it's going to be much of a surprise that that's going to be going to Myles Garrett. So pretty easy choices there at edge. Interior defensive line up next. There was one obvious choice for me, and then I really struggled with interior D-line. I'm excited to see who gets voted in this initially and kind of what you guys think here. So the obvious one for me is Jeffrey Simmons. The other one wasn't such an easy choice. I ended up going with Cam Hayward. So let's just start with Jeffrey Simmons and give him his credit. So he ends up, I didn't write this down, so forgive me. I just wanted to pull up where he ended in terms of pressures and the likes. So he ended up second in the NFL in pressures behind Zach Allen, who keeps putting up these pressure numbers. Now, Zach Allen he's incredible. Zach Allen is he's not going to make this list for me for the All-Pro teams. Number one, I just don't think he was as good as a run defender this year, but this is the second year in a row he's led all interior D linemen in pressures, and a big reason for that is he just plays more than everybody. This is the second year in a row where Zach Allen has played like 20% more snaps than anybody else on the interior D line, and his system does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of scheming open loops and twists to get him some of those empty pressure numbers, and that's reinforced by PFF's pass rush win rate, where Jeffrey Simmons finished, let's filter this down to 20%. So Jeffrey Simmons, if we filter to 50%, because Studs and Duds champion Corey Durden actually finished number one in pass rush win rate at 29%. But if we filter it down to 50% of snaps played, Jeffrey Simmons is number one there at 25.6%. And he's second in total pressures, did get double-digit sacks. He was dominant. He entered that tier one elite level of defensive tackle play, was great as a run defender as well. I've been wanting to see Jeffrey Simmons really unlock this level in his game, and for him to do it on a bad football team, I think he heads into next year as DT1 in the NFL. I do. I'm so impressed by what he's done this year. And if he starts to get more pieces around him, Jeffrey Simmons could be maybe a Defensive Player of the Year candidate himself. But yeah, Zach Allen down there, 22nd in pass rush win rate, by the way. I don't quite see him as the dominant force necessarily of like a Jeffrey Simmons. But Cam Hayward's my other choice here. And I just think he was the most complete option. You could go with someone like Zach Allen that, racks up the numbers, but isn't as good of a run defender, or someone like Chris Jones that's done that. You could do some guys that maybe are slightly more impactful as pass rushers, but not as good as run defenders if you really want to lean into the pass rushing aspect of defensive tackle play. But I think Cam Hayward is the next best, most complete, impactful defensive tackle in the league. I mean, first and foremost, he's still at his age, like he's in the conversation for like best run defending interior D lineman. He's not a typical nose tackle, which you would typically lean towards, like a Dexter Lawrence type to be like, that's the most dominant run defender. But in terms of like what you ask Cam Hayward to do as a 4-eye, as a 3-tech, to just take on blocks, deconstruct them, get off at the point of attack, keep your gap discipline, like be a brick wall with what you're asked to do. Cam Hayward, I think, does what he is asked to do in the run game better than anybody in the league. He did finish with 50 pressures on the season, so he was impacting the quarterback as a pass rusher, which 50 pressures got him 9th for overall pressures for defensive tackles, but it's tight. He's only 2 pressures behind Osa Odigizua, who finished 6th for pressures. So he's right in that second cluster of like really high-end pass rushers. And then also underrated for Cam Hayward, he deflected 5 passes at the line of scrimmage this year. And most recently on Sunday night, we saw a game-changing play where he bats up the ball. It ends up getting intercepted by TJ Watt. I don't think they're in the playoffs if Cam Hayward wasn't as good at batting passes as he is. So that was maybe, if I was close with some of these guys, that is what set it over for me to go with Cam Hayward. But that's another one that's not an easy choice. But I did land on Cam Hayward there. All right, let's go to linebacker. This is a really tough position, especially this year with Fred Warner getting hurt. I came up with my names. It wasn't that hard of a choice, but like, I don't know that these are players that I typically would say are standard all-pro level guys overall. But you kind of are stuck there like this year, like with linebackers, you either have to take like the elite run defenders or the elite cover guys. There's not really a complete guy. But anyway, the 2 guys that went for first team, I think had the best resumes this season for this. And I wouldn't be surprised if these guys aren't even on the all-pro teams, like first or second team. We'll see what the voting ends up being. But I went with Jack Campbell and Jordan Brooks for Miami. I think those are probably going to be a little bit of a surprise, but I mean, Jack Campbell, I think these 2 guys have arrived as the 2 best run defenders at the position in the NFL, other than maybe a linebacker that was on my second team, all-pro, that we'll talk about. But what these guys have done around the line of scrimmage and towards the sideline has been so impactful this year. So some of the numbers I wrote down with these guys: Jack Campbell finishes as the leader in defensive stops this year at 68. So defensive stops are plays that are charted as a what is constituted as a loss by the offense. I believe it depends on the down. I think it's like 3 or less yards on first down, or like maybe it has something to do with the line to gain or something like that. But it's a successful play by the defense. So 68 defensive stops as the leader is super impressive. And with Jack Campbell, I think for me to get to this point with him, it's not just between the tackles, thumping, getting on blocks. That was his elite eval coming out of Iowa. It was like, man, a 6'4.5", 255-pound linebacker that plays with his hair on fire. Like, he's going to be like an extension of your defensive line between the tackles. But his ability to get guys down in space, in his assignment as a coverage defender, they don't ask a whole lot of him in coverage because he's just not that special of an athlete. But he is really quick-footed, and when a receiving back or a slot receiver, if a receiving back catches a dump down, or a slot receiver is getting a swing pass or a pass out towards the sideline, he has been remarkably consistent at squaring those guys up, getting them down before the line to gain. He finished the year 6th in the NFL in missed tackle percentage. He was 10th in the NFL in TFLs. His resume is really complete to me. And it's not like he was a liability in coverage. You can't ask Jack Campbell to do all of the things that some of the other linebackers can. But in what they asked him to do, he was perfectly reasonable. And then Jordan Brooks. Jordan Brooks just flat out impressed me this year. I think he took a leap in so many ways. I think the way he's seeing the game right now in his 6th season or whatever it's in, the ability for him to fly to the ball, he finished 4th in the NFL in defensive stops. But especially that aggressive trigger showed up. He finished 2nd among linebackers in TFLs this year. Shout out, by the way, Eric Wilson finished far and away number 1 in TFLs this year. Very underrated player in Flores' defense. But Jordan Brooks flying into the backfield, flying to the sideline, and most notably for Brooks, my biggest criticism on Jordan Brooks and why I have been historically lower on him over the last few years is he is regarded as this great run defender, which he plays fast. He gets off blocks and all that, but he has been the last 2 years pretty high in missed tackle rate. Last year was at 16.5% missed tackles. Like, that's genuinely bad for a linebacker. And 11% the year before that. It's a big reason why Seattle let him go, was like, well, you're not this standout in coverage. We like what you do in run defense, but why are you missing so many tackles? This year, Jordan Brooks finished number 1 in the NFL in missed tackle rate among linebackers at 4.3%. Like, that's 3 times better than 2 years ago and 4 times better than last year. He's really put it all together, and I think deserves first-team All-Pro. But there's some other names when we get to the second team. The linebacker position was tough to choose. And again, I'm really excited to see who ends up getting those in reality. All right, let's go to cornerback. And by the way, just as you're thinking about this, the NFL did add a slot corner or a nickel defensive back to be considered here. So if you're thinking about someone like Cooper DeJean or something like that, just keep that in mind as I'm talking. And when you're thinking about who got snubbed here, I will be getting to the nickel here. Let me just get a quick sip of my nice Diet Coke here. Keep things rolling. All right. Devin in the chat says, Witherspoon better be here. Witherspoon didn't make the cut. A lot of good options here. Witherspoon only playing 11 games. If Witherspoon played more games, I would have picked him. Game by game, he might have been the best corner in the NFL. So I will give Witherspoon a shout out there in the chat, but he didn't make my list. Just because of, only played 11 games. That's 2/3 of the season. My choices at cornerback for first-team All-Pro, Christian Gonzalez and Quinyon Mitchell, 2 young corners ascending to the top of this position group. I just can't say enough about Christian Gonzalez. I think I am ready to say he is. I mean, it's tough. And Broncos fans are going to come at me for not saying Pat Surtain, right? I don't know, man. I think in a vacuum, I think I'd actually take Christian Gonzalez over Pat Surtain. And Surtain had a good year. He didn't have like a standout year or anything. Cornerback is such a volatile position. I might still view you as the best cornerback in the NFL and not pick you for the All-Pro team, because I think looking at production for Pro Bowl and All-Pro is more of a reflection of what just happened and how well you played. Whereas if I'm actually putting together like rankings of players, I'll look at more than just one season, right? Because cornerback in an NFL season where you only play 17 games, it's just such a volatile position. So conversations at this position and secondary in general is really tough. But to me, just by the film, these were the 2 best cornerbacks in the NFL this year. From a lockdown coverage perspective, the production is great with these guys. Now, no interceptions between these 2 players, Christian Gonzalez and Quinyon Mitchell. So that's where a lot of people are going to be offended by these 2 guys, because I think I think interceptions are just remarkably overrated when we discuss how good guys are at this position, because I think the league leader in cornerback had 5 picks this year. Is that right? It's loading right now. I think it was 5. But let's say it's 6, but I'm pretty sure it was 5 at corner. That's 5 out of 1,100 plays. And you might make the Pro Bowl or the All-Pro off of those 5 plays. And typically, at least half of those interceptions are like a stupid decision by the QB that had nothing to do with the corner, or a ball gets deflected and lands in your lap. Interceptions matter, but it's just a small piece of the picture here. So let me read off some meaningful numbers for these guys. We're going to start with Christian Gonzalez, who was the easy choice for me. Quinyon Mitchell was a little bit harder. But Christian Gonzalez, on a defense, by the way, that's not afraid to play man coverage. The Patriots were in the top half of the league, just about average. I think they ran the 14th most man coverage this year, but this isn't like some off zone oriented defense. Like they mix it up and will run man. He was fourth in the NFL in reception percentage allowed. So the amount of receptions you allowed when targeted, 46% is an elite territory there. So I should read off some of the other leaders in these stats as I do this. Hold on. Let me just get my filters ready here. So the other four guys for reception percentage allowed all had excellent seasons. It was Gonzalez, actually is third. I wrote that down wrong. He's third in reception percentage allowed. Quinyon Mitchell was number one. Jamel Dean was number two. Dean missed 3 games, unfortunately, but he had a really good year. And DJ Turner was fourth. That to me is the best stat, in my opinion, for cornerbacks is reception percentage, because it's your targeted. Was your coverage tight enough to stop the receiver from catching the ball? And 1 or 2 drops, by the way, is not going to sway this thing too far in either direction when all these guys you're talking about between 60 and 100 targets. So Gonzalez was locked down in that sense. He was targeted at a pretty high rate. He was the 22nd most targeted corner in the league out of 78 eligible corners. Yet despite being targeted at a top 20 percentile there, he gave up the 18th fewest yards. So he's targeted at a high rate, but allows very few yards. He allowed just 357 yards on the season. That's spectacular. He was credited with just 1 touchdown allowed on the year. So he was tied for 5th in touchdowns allowed. Only 4 other players were credited with 0 touchdowns allowed this season. So he was right at the top there. He did have production. He did have 7 passes defended, which puts him in the middle of starters for ball production. But the shutdown metrics are as good as they get. And then as a cherry on top for Christian Gonzalez, he also only missed 1 tackle. And I know you might not say corners and tackling is super important. This was a big case for Pat Surtain last year. Like, Pat Surtain didn't miss a single tackle. If you miss a tackle at cornerback, those turn into explosive plays. And I really do value that. Especially with all the off zone these days. If you're going to allow an 8-yard reception as a top-down defender, you got to get that guy to the ground, because if you miss that, that's another 10, 15 yards, if not worse. So everything across the board for Gonzalez, not to mention just watching the guy play, he is the built-in-a-lab corner that I want right now. His technique is phenomenal. I know the interceptions haven't come yet, but I do see ball skills there. I see him get his head around when the ball's in the air. He was not penalized a ton this year. That's another thing with him. He was, I think, just penalized 3 times this year. Is that? I think that's right. Let me confirm that. Yeah, just penalized 3 times this year. Like, that's almost nothing. So he doesn't depend on grabbiness or being overly physical. He doesn't hit guys early before the ball gets there. Just remarkably sound player. He, to me, was the best corner in the league this year. And then Quinyon Mitchell, it's a lot of the same argument. Like I said, number 1 in reception percentage allowed. He was 23rd most targeted cornerback in the NFL this year. Sorry, I got that wrong. 14th most targeted corner in the NFL this year, gave up the 23 fewest yards. So that's the spectrum you want. You want to see a guy that's targeted a good bit, but isn't allowing yards, on par with how much you're getting targeted. He was one of the 4 players in the NFL that did not allow a touchdown this year, and he also had 7 passes defended. So I look for lockdown ability from my corners, and these were the 2 most lockdown corners in the NFL this year. There are some snubs. There are a bunch of guys at this position that I can't wait to get to the second team conversation, because some of the guys you guys are saying in the chat are going to show up on the second team. But to me, Those two guys epitomize the position, and those are going to be my picks at cornerback. All right. Nickelback. Nickelback is fascinating. As a band, no. We don't need to get into music conversation here, but my first team All-Pro at Nickelback is going to go to Kyle Hamilton. And this is, you can really debate how to kind of slot these guys in. I chose to look at Kyle Hamilton as a nickel because from week 4 on, he only played 29 snaps as a safety, 2.2 snaps per game after week 4 as a safety. So that's every other snap is as a nickel corner, a box safety, that bandit star defender role that has become so prominent in the NFL. That is what this spot on the All-Pro team is going for. If you want to just view him as a safety and make him the first team All-Pro safety, that's fine. I'm not really going to refute you on it, but for me, this is the position Hamilton plays and just made the most sense. Like if I'm voting for actual safeties, Hamilton doesn't have the tape at safety. Like why would we compare some of these other guys to Hamilton? You know what I'm saying? I think what gets lost here is people see this as like a slight to Hamilton. This is such a more impactful position, the nickel defender, than it is safety. And he's kind of like, for me, it's fitting that Hamilton should get this because he is the reason all these other teams are taking safeties and putting them into this position. In many cases, it's in the Mike McDonald system, but it's transcended beyond that as well. So whether you're talking about Nicky Manwari or a lot of what they do with Derwin James, though it's a little bit different with Derwin, who we're going to have a conversation about here, or Jalen Petrie on the Texans, Javon Bullard on the Packers outside of this system. He is why they added, to me, it goes beyond that because slot corner has been a starting position in the NFL for a long time, but the value of nickel defense and having a nickel back in that spot, Kyle Hamilton's epitomized that. So the interesting thing with Hamilton is from a true like raw numbers perspective, Hamilton doesn't have as strong of a case. To me, this is more of he's got good numbers, but when you look at the impact he made when he moved down into the nickel from the first 3.5-4 weeks of the season when he was more of a deep safety, the way that the defense evolved overnight, he did finish 4th in the NFL in defensive stops among safeties. He was 3rd in TFLs for nickels and safeties. He finished 12th out of 67 eligible players in missed tackle percentage. And he did defend 4 passes, which was above average. That was like in the 20 range for nickel defenders. But to me, this is more of a impact on the game. You watch the Ravens, the way he just dominates around the line of scrimmage, the presence. I don't think there's a defensive back in the league that you feel his presence more, that you have to actually game plan against more than Kyle Hamilton. Just the way that his length and his instincts can take away the short to intermediate game, the screen game. As a blitzer, what he does is super special. So there's good numbers there, but the impact he makes in that nickel position, it just didn't feel right to go with anybody else because I think the tape was great and he is the best nickel in the NFL and was so again this year. Now, when we look at the actual safeties, this was harder. There's not a ton of like standout safeties in the NFL right now, especially because so many of them are more in that nickel lens. But where I landed at safety is Kevin Byard and Derwin James. And I'll start with Derwin James because I think some people will say, well, Derwin plays the same role that Kyle Hamilton does. Why can't Hamilton be a safety, but Derwin is? I did look at the snap splits because I knew that was going to come into the equation here. Derwin did play 143 snaps as an actual safety this year. His role, his primary spot isn't the nickel, but from start to finish throughout the year, he actually would about 8 plays per game is what 143 snaps divided by 17 breaks down into. About 8 to 9 plays a game, he would actually step back and play that deep safety. Whereas with Kyle Hamilton, I feel like he made the All-Pro based on his performance from week 4 onward. And from that point onward, Kyle Hamilton only played 2 snaps per game as a safety. So there's my explanation there, why I'm comfortable putting Derwin as a true safety. But Derwin was awesome, man. He was 3rd in the NFL in defensive stops for safeties. He was 5th in TFLs. He had 5 passes defended, which was tied for 21st among safeties, including a beautiful game-winning interception against the Chiefs, covering Travis Kelce. But just across the board, Derwin James has been so good in Jesse Minter's defense. I think that too, like the fact that the Chargers defense does outkick their coverage, if you will, in that they play way above their talent level. And I think Derwin's presence in the middle of the field, just all across the board, what he does as a blitzer too, I think he is a rising tide that lifts all boats. So I went with Derwin. And then Kevin Byard, this is more of a production thing. I mean, he led the NFL with 7 interceptions. There wasn't a clear choice here. And I do think a lot of Kevin Byard's interceptions were quite impressive. Like, his zone IQ is outstanding. It is. He was out here baiting quarterbacks, making plays outside of his expected kind of zone range, if you will. Felt like anytime he had an opportunity, he wasn't dropping it. Like, he was so opportunistic. I think when you talk about the Bears as one of the stories of this season, they don't have the year they had without Kevin Byard and a lot of the interceptions he made. And then he was also just like very steady as a overall like run defender. Very above average to good, even in terms of defensive stops and missed tackle percentage. Wasn't in the top 10 in those areas, but he does spend a lot more time deep. And I think he produced at a level that deserves this recognition. Would I rank Kevin Byard as a top 2 safety in the NFL? No, I wouldn't. But this is more about assessing who played at that top level this last season. And for me, Kevin Byard. All right. There's your first team. I did make a nice little graphic here for the full first team. I didn't do specialists. Sorry. I'll let you guys pick the TFG specialists maybe. All right. So there's your first team. Let's do second team, shall we? So at quarterback, we don't really need to get into this again, but it's Drake May. That was going to be pretty obvious after we spent a lot of time on that debate between Drake May and Stafford. Some people in the chat sad I'm not doing special teams. I get it. You know, I know Rashid Shaheed would have to make it as a returner, so I'll shout him out. I ran out of time prepping this to get into the specialists. But anyway, Drake May is your first team quarterback. Running back was challenging. I had a bunch of names for second team running back that I could throw a dart and be happy with any of these guys. I did land on Jonathan Taylor as second team running back. He to me had the most balanced, complete resume for this, but again, it's tough because I think so. Jonathan Taylor finished third in the NFL in rushing and third in scrimmage yards. Great balanced profile there. He also was the engine of, it was a historic offense in the first half of the year. And then things obviously they fell off the rails, right? That, Daniel Jones goes down, you got Rivers in there, the defense, it shrinks all of a sudden. Obviously, the last 5 weeks, it's harder to choose Jonathan Taylor here. Now, here's all the other names that deserve a mention here, because I really think you could go in a lot of different directions here. So, this is why I struggled with it, because I think Jonathan Taylor has the most balanced resume as third in scrimmage yards, third in rushing yards. But from a statistical standpoint, it's okay, James Cook was number one in rushing yards, but didn't have the receiving capabilities to even match Jonathan Taylor's total yardage. Christian McCaffrey also had more scrimmage yards, but Christian McCaffrey was 8th in rushing yards. And I also just don't think Christian McCaffrey was a better, more impactful running back than Jonathan Taylor. I think James Cook has an argument there. And I know that sounds like a shot at Christian McCaffrey. Again, I think McCaffrey has a case here, but I don't think the dynamism was necessarily there with McCaffrey, though his vision and consistency was incredible and a huge part of the Niners' success this year. Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, by the tape, was the second best running back in the NFL this year, but didn't have the production to really justify putting him here above Jonathan Taylor. So I think Taylor was the best choice in terms of rushing production, receiving production, impact on his team, and just overall tape. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, man, some of those runs this year, busting through the defense, breakaway runs, the pull away speed, I'm not sitting here complaining about picking Jonathan Taylor for second team All-Pro, but this was a really tight race for the second team. Okay. Wide receiver, the second team was actually pretty easy as well. And maybe the chat can point someone else out that I should consider here, but George Pickens and Jamar Chase were kind of in their own little cluster behind Puka and JSN. George Pickens finishes third in receiving yards, and Jamar Chase finishes fourth. The only guy that was in here was Amon-Ra St. Brown was in that cluster in terms of yardage, but Amon-Ra is amazing, but I don't think he was as good as these two wide receivers this year. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I definitely think Pickens needs to make this. I mean, he was sensational in Dallas. The amount of just batshit crazy catches he made, the run after catch ability, again, finishing third in receiving yards. He was one of the stories of this season, is what he was able to do in Dallas. So he was a pretty easy choice here. And then Jamar Chase, despite, getting himself suspended for a game, which you can view that how you want. But despite that, and having a backup quarterback in there, Jake Browning, and then it was Joe Flacco played well, and then he didn't. But despite a rough season in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase still finishes fourth in receiving yards, still puts up some insane plays on tape. This cluster was relatively easy for me. Again, Jackson Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown was the other guy that I kind of considered there, but it was pretty easy for me to go with Pickens and Jamar Chase. And then, man, tight end too. There wasn't I kind of wanted to just leave this one blank. The only guy I felt was really worthy was George Kittle. Honestly, man, he missed 6 games, but still the best blocking tight end in the league. I think his impact on that offense speaks for itself with some of the dynamic games he has as a receiver. But this position is more than just catching passes. I really do value the blocking component. Kyle Pitts was the next leader in receiving yards. He got like a fourth of those in one game. Okay, Kyle Pitts is not an all-pro player. Come on. Some people are saying Loveland in the chat. I thought about Loveland. even then, Loveland was quiet for the first 6 weeks. If you're going to hurt Kittle for missing 6 weeks, I still think Kittle's a better tight end than Loveland this year. So this was a really hard one, man. But Kittle to me was the one guy that I felt comfortable putting in that spot and not really feeling like I had to apologize about it, if that makes sense. A lot of people are saying Dallas Goedert. Really? Dallas Goedert was not an All-Pro. Does Dallas Goedert have an argument? Let's look at this. Because I didn't even think about Dallas Goedert. I mean, I had him in a bunch of my fantasy teams, and he had some good weeks, but that just doesn't feel right to me. Let's see. It's loading up. Just give it a second. So Dallas Goedert finished. No way. What the hell are you guys talking about? Dallas Goedert was 14th in receiving yards. He had less receiving yards than George Kittle in 4 less games. He was 0 for 8 on contested. Get out of here. He's 0 for 8 on contested catches this year. Get out of here. It was not Dallas Goedert. No way. I mean, the only other guy I really wanted to put in there was Darnell Washington, but that just didn't feel right either to put Darnell Washington in over George Kittle. I honestly think if I wasn't going Kittle, I might go Loveland or Tyler Warren, one of the rookies, but just go watch some George Kittle blocking tape and what he does for that offense, and then come back to me and tell me it's a bad choice. All right, let's move on. Second team All-Pro offensive tackle. I've got Garrett Bowles and Darnell Wright. And these guys, Garrett Bowles was actually in consideration for me for first team. He was the best pass protector in the league this year, Garrett Bowles. He was tied with Penei Sewell in pressures allowed, but he was number 1 in pass blocking efficiency. And if you look at left tackles only, so Garrett Bowles allowed 19 pressures at left tackle. Next down was actually Patrick Paul for the Dolphins at 25. Now, all of the Dolphins players are lower for pressures allowed because of the system they run, where it's a lot of running and getting that ball out immediately. So the most unique system in the league. Patrick Paul was second at 25. And then after that, again, Garrett Bowles was at 19 pressures allowed this year. Bernard Raymond at 31 pressures allowed, and then Trent Williams allowed 32 pressures. So Garrett Bowles effectively 1 pressure per week from your blind side. Incredible. He's just a pretty good run blocker, though. I went with the guys that were also just behind Garrett. Well, behind Garrett Bowles, but also, still top 3 to 5 in pass protection. But the premium elite run blockers in the league, I went with those guys over Garrett Bowles. But man, what an asset in Denver, and what a year Garrett Bowles had. If you wanted to kind of go with one pass protector and one more of a run blocking oriented guy for your first team All-Pro, just to kind of split hairs there, I'm not really going to argue it, but Garrett Bowles ended up on the second team for me. And then Darnell Wright, he's, I think, a next cut. Like, I don't think Darnell Wright's really in the debate for first team in the way that Garrett Bowles is, but pretty easy choice here, considering what a weapon he was in that Bears run game. He was used just like Penei Sewell's used in Detroit as a puller. I think like 2/3 of their runs were to the right this year, getting behind Darnell Wright. Just absolutely deleting guys. I don't know where to find like charted pancake blocks, but I wouldn't be surprised if Darnell Wright was number 1 there. If he's not number 1, the only guys he's behind were my first team All-Pros with Penei Sewell and Trent Williams. And And then he took massive leaps as a pass blocker too. He is, just like I said with Penei Sewell as well. The parallels between these two guys are very similar. Sewell does feel like when he loses, it's a little more ugly, and I still think Darnell Wright has some glitches in his technique still to clean up, but he was second in pass blocking efficiency among right tackles in the NFL. Like, he was really good in pass pro as well. So those are my tackles. And then at guard, I've got Quinn Miners, and this was probably the hardest guy to choose on this list, Peter Skoronski. Quinn Miners was an easy choice. He was second in pass blocking efficiency among right guards, and incredible run blocker, incredible screen game guy, awesome on the move. He definitely was, stood out as an easy choice if he wasn't going to make first team. But then it's hard. It's really hard to find your next guard here because there's just not like Chris Lindstrom came to mind. Lindstrom to me is one of those guys that's kind of been like penciled in a little bit. Lindstrom had a rough year in pass pro, dude. He really did. And even if he is top 5 in run blocking right now, I just wasn't prepared to give Chris Lindstrom all pro this year. Felt like he was more of an issue in pass pro than he's ever been. And then there's just not a lot of great options here. I mean, like Trey Smith for the I'm having a brain fart right now. Trey Smith is the Chiefs. I'm trying to think of Tyler Smith for Dallas. Both those guys came to mind. I think in Trey Smith's case, the pass blocking just wasn't quite where I wanted it to be as well. And I think like he was a better pass blocker than Chris Lindstrom, but Lindstrom was a better run blocker. Those guys just weren't complete enough as players to me. I feel like Tyler Smith in Dallas missed a lot of time, right? I actually am only just thinking of Tyler Smith. I just want to make sure I'm not making a mistake here because I'm not like super confident in Peter Skoronski. Like I'm willing to even change this if I find one that's a better take, but I just want to see. No, Tyler Smith played 16 games. He's definitely in the mix because I know he's a stud whenever he plays. He did have 11 penalties this year. It's not great. It led all guards. Curious what the chat's saying. Yeah, Kevin Dotson was really good. But the thing with Skoronski is he was 6th in pressures allowed, tied for 4th in pass blocking efficiency behind the 3 guys we've already ranked or placed on this team. He did it in an absolute nightmare situation for a rookie quarterback that holds onto the ball for a long time. And you just never had to worry about him as a pass blocker. He was one of the best pass blocking guards in the league, and he's really made strides as a run blocker. Every time I watch the Titans, I gravitate towards watching him, and he's just super, super sound. I mean, our first team All-Pro selection there in Joe Thuney was always the comp on Peter Skoronski, and man, he is very similar on the tape. Like, just such a technician. I am seeing some Michael and Wainu guys in the chat, and that was the other guy that I had originally put before Peter Skoronski. But the fact that Skoronski did it on such a nightmare team with a quarterback that holds the ball long, changing, coordinators mid-season. Maybe this is the wrong way to do it, but it's at worst a push in my mind with like Skoronski, maybe Tyler Smith that we shouted out, and Mike Onwenu. It's at least a push, but I think to give Skoronski some love in a tiebreaker, considering just how rough it is in Tennessee, I'm cool with doing it. I mean, no one is freaking picking anybody on that Titan. Well, I mean, Simmons, I guess, but if Peter Skoronski's on the Bears this year, or the Jags, or the Patriots, like the Seahawks, like any of these teams, if Peter Skoronski does what he does on any of these good teams, he's absolutely on this list, I think. So we're gonna go with Peter Skoronski. It's probably the least confident. That and like tight end 2 are probably the least confident I am so far on this one. Center. This one, I'm curious if the chat can guess who I'm going to pick here, because this is my favorite pick. This is like the football hipster pick. This is the like, ooh, he's a ball knower pick. Like, oh, he's watching the tape. I'm curious if you guys are going to see this one coming. But my pick for center 2 is Aaron Brewer for the Miami Dolphins. ETSP guessed it in the chat. And a lot of people were going to say Drew Dahlman. He would be my third team. Look, go watch the Dolphins, guys. I know it's not easy. I know it's not fun. This dude was so freaking good. There was even, I would say, even Penei Sewell and Darnell Wright included, there was not a bigger weapon of an offensive line than Aaron Brewer. The year that Devon Achane had this year, who also got snubbed from the All-Pro team here, it doesn't happen without Aaron Brewer. Like, dude, this guy out of, he's not Navy, is he? No. Where did he play his school? Where did he? Texas State. So he comes into the league like 7 years ago, maybe a little bit less. 2020, so yeah, 5 or 6 years ago. He was like 270 pounds. He scratched for a role on the Titans. He is like incrementally bulked up to about 300 pounds. He is probably the best, just pure like speed athlete of any starting lineman in the league. Certainly top 3. And he is like legit like out there running out in front of like Devon Achane and all these guys. Their scheme like pivots around him. And the amount of just impact blocks he makes, his targeting system, just an absolute weapon. Look, the Dolphins sucked this year. That was an explosive run game, right? Like, it was a good offense because of 2 players and 1 play caller, Aaron Brewer, Devon Achane, and Mike McDaniel. And then the reason I'm ready to put him here, he actually finished pretty good in pass blocking. Now, the system protects all these guys, so I realize that. But he was 6th in the NFL in pass blocking efficiency at center. Like he's bulked up, he is developed as a pass blocker, and he is more of a strength for them in that department than a weakness. Like, do I want him one-on-one with Dexter Lawrence? No, of course not. But that applies to pretty much every center, Drew Dahlman included, who would have been in consideration here. But I get it. If Drew Dahlman's the pick here, I can't really complain. He was really good too. But I just genuinely think Aaron Brewer was even better. Like, very similar types of players. I just genuinely think Aaron Brewer was even better. All right. On to the defense for second team. So my second team edge rushers are going to be in the NFC North, Aiden Hutchinson and Micah Parsons. So Aiden Hutchinson, very easy choice here, finishes 1st in pressures this year. He was 6th in the NFL in pass rush win rate. I mean, again, pretty damn easy choice here. Just like the one guy on that defense that you can count on week in, week out too. Felt like there were so many fourth quarters watching the Lions, and their defense had their struggles this year, right? But there were a lot of moments where they're in the fourth quarter and they're in a bad spot, and Aiden Hutchinson's the one that does get in for that game-breaking pressure. So Aiden Hutchinson, and then look, you can call me a homer if you want. Micah Parsons still deserves to make this list despite missing the final 3.5 games of the season. He finished the year still 7th in pressures, And 7th might not even sound that great, but he was just 5 pressures behind Myles Garrett for 4th place. So Parsons still had 79 pressures to Myles Garrett's 84 pressures. So the total numbers were still there, but he finishes 4th in pass rush win rate. Fitting that he's the 4th guy selected here. And just like the Packers aren't in the playoffs without Micah Parsons. I think that matters. Like there were multiple games that he just slammed the door shut on. I still think, even though he missed the final 3.5 games, Micah deserves to be on the All-Pro list. I'm curious what people think about that, but I don't think it's that controversial. Just anytime there's a Packer, I'm gonna have to face the bias accusations, but I don't think so. I really don't. Okay, now second team interior D-line. I like my choices here, but I don't really feel like these guys were all pro caliber talents this year. Like I wish we could just pick D linemen in general so that some of the other edge rushers could get their love here. Cause some of the guys I have seen in the chat, like Danielle Hunter and maybe Brian Burns. Brian Burns, I think, is getting a little overrated by some puffed up sack numbers. I think Josh Hines Allen should go in before Brian Burns, then maybe Burns. But I went for my interior D line for the second team, Leonard Williams and Chris Jones. Leonard Williams was awesome. Huge part of that hive mind Seahawks defense. He's just, when I think of like lining up against that Seahawks defense or imagine what it's like, he's just a huge part of it where you have to know where he's lined up. He gets off blocks. He's a really nice run defender. He's such a core part of the way that they stunt and play pass rushing games up front. Leonard Williams finished 4th in the NFL in total pressures. They can even like drop him into coverage and do some stuff there. Like he's a weapon. I felt relatively comfortable going with him as one of the 4 best interior D linemen this year. And then Chris Jones. And I think this is probably just Chiefs fatigue. I still think Chris Jones deserves to be on the list here. He finished 3rd in the NFL in pressures. He, in the last month of meaningful football, with when the Chiefs were trying to lock in, Chris Jones was the old Chris Jones for an important month of football there. He was a little bit slower to start, but again, he still finished 3rd in the NFL in pressures. And I would have been totally open to putting someone else in here, but I didn't think anybody else had as good of a, case to go here. I would love to say that, Sexy Dexy had a great year. He didn't. So we're going to go with Chris Jones, even though I think a lot of people have a negative. Here's what I'll say. I think there's so much pressure on Chris Jones and the expectations on the Chiefs are so high that for years they have needed Chris Jones to be something close to like an Aaron Donald level presence. Not quite Aaron Donald, but they've needed Chris Jones to be like at least like locked first team All-Pro, like 95 pressure season, dominate every game. What I'm trying to say is the narrative on the Chiefs becomes they need Chris Jones to be elite or the defense is going to struggle. And this year, Chris Jones just wasn't quite on that same level. The Chiefs defense takes a step back and it becomes a negative conversation about Chris Jones, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, it's Chris Jones's fault that the defense isn't as good as it used to be. Again, he still had probably 4 or 5 games this year where he did take over and the Chiefs did have dominant defense. Finishes 3rd in pressures. I'm fine with it. All right. Some people are saying Derek Brown in the chat. I kind of regret not putting Derek Brown, to be honest. I think I would actually flip that if I'm being honest. I don't know how I forgot about Derek Brown. I feel like that's an embarrassment for me as a Panthers fan. The thing with Derek Brown is like the pass rushing impact just isn't there. So it's not like crazy that you wouldn't pick Derek Brown. I mean, Derek Brown finished 25th in pressures. He was a very average, well, above average, but not an impact pass rusher. But Derek Brown was an elite run defender for the Panthers this year. I'll keep it. I'll keep it, but it does hurt me a little bit. It does hurt me a little bit. The 35 pressures is a little rough. It is. But Derek Brown definitely deserves a shout out. He's phenomenal. Like I will say this, as the fake Panthers fan, as Chad is saying, there are moments where you're watching the Panthers defense and you're like, does anybody want to rush the passer? I do wish Derek Brown could take over a little bit more in some of those moments. Like, I love the run defense. Do not get me wrong. He's obviously a candidate here, but I think thinking it through, I'm cool with keeping Chris Jones. All right, this is the interesting one. Second team All-Pro linebacker. Demario Davis and Devin Lloyd were my picks. So Demario Davis, perennially under-discussed, underappreciated. And the thing with Davis is, other than his PFF run defense grade, which is at the top of the league, it's in the top 5, I think. Other than that, there's not a ton of numbers that you can point at with Demario Davis, whether it's TFLs or pass breakups or, that. So it kind of depends how much stock you want to put in PFF grade. That's not why I'm picking him. It's just like, if you're making an argument for Demario Davis, it's that he was, he had an 89 run defense grade this year. This to me is I sat there and watched Saints games this year. I saw a defense that was way better than I thought, that finished as at least an average run defense. And every single game I watched the Saints, the takeaway seemingly every week is, why don't more people talk about Demario Davis? Now, he did finish 8th in the NFL in defensive stops. Like, that's a pretty good stat to throw out there. But Demario Davis, he's one of these older linebackers that sees the game better than so many other guys. He can still move in coverage. Like, there's not a ton of on-ball production. That can be fluky at times. But he still carries tight ends and, runs with guys to the sideline. He can carry a running back on a wheel route. I think Demario Davis was one of the 3 or 4 best linebackers in the NFL this year. And that comes from watching the tape. So I picked Demario Davis. And then Devin Lloyd, I almost feel like bullied into picking this because I have some thoughts on Devin Lloyd. I think there's a lot of games where he just doesn't look that good. I mean, talk about the opposite, where you have a guy here in Devin Lloyd who people were saying is a defensive player of the year candidate after he has 5 interceptions through the first month and a half of football. He gets the pick 6 at the goal line against the Chiefs, which was one of the better defensive plays of the year. He ends up with 7 passes defended, tied for second with 3 other players. And he was a great blitzer this year too. So I'm not going to say that I regret putting him here or that I feel bullied to put him here. In my heart of hearts, I think there were other linebackers that played this position better than Devin Lloyd. But I do think the production matters, like I said. I guess I still question some of the missed tackles and I just don't think he's that good of a run defender. I think he has the occasional splash play, but a lot of Ernest Jones in the chat, and I can see it. I can absolutely see it for Ernest Jones. But and I did look at Ernest Jones. I didn't write down the reason why necessarily. So Ernest Jones also had crazy interception numbers. He had 5 interceptions, 6 pass breakups total. So 5 interceptions and 1 pass breakup. But I don't know. I think Ernest Jones is a better run defender than Devin Lloyd, but I don't think it's a massive gap. I see the 5 interceptions. To me, Devin Lloyd, much better efforts to make those interceptions happen, like zone IQ, baiting the QB, making really good plays on the ball. I'd have to go rewatch all of Ernest Jones' 5 picks, but I have a pretty strong feeling a lot of those were kind of more interceptions on the fortunate side of things, and I'm almost tempted, because we are live here and we're having fun, I'm almost tempted to just pull up Ernest Jones' picks right now and just see if this changes what I remember on the year, because he was a guy that I really thought about. I can't show it because I don't want to risk not checking the copyright, but I can real quick watch his 5 interceptions thanks to NFL Pro. So, first one here against the Niners was decent zone coverage, but a really bad decision by Purdy about 5 seconds into the play, but decent pick for his first one. Number 2 against the Cardinals is a dropped, that's one I remember, a dropped pass that bounces off 3 defenders and lands in his hands. Now we have Texans. Yeah, Stroud hit while thrown. Jones actually trips and falls as Nico Collins is actually wide open in front of his face. But because Stroud gets hit while he's thrown, the ball ends up in the hands of Ernest Jones, who was about to give up about a 30-yard completion. This is backing up what I maybe remember here with these picks. Oh, yes, the Max Brosmer. The Max Brosmer, Nosmer interception where Jones is just standing there. Unblocked, Lawrence tackles Brosmer, and as he's about to get sacked, Brosmer over his head lobs it. And then we have another one against the Vikings in a 19-0 game in the fourth quarter. And it's a deflected ball lands into his hands. So there's one interception there that was actually worth it. So anyway, this is, sometimes I remember what I saw. And those 5 interceptions for Ernest Jones, certainly not what we saw from Devin Lloyd, where he's baiting dudes in coverage and I think making much better plays. But anyway, we went with Devin Lloyd there, and then the other quick comment is Zach Bond. I think Zach Bond was really good this year. I think he fell just short of some of the years these other guys had. But Zach Bond was also really good this year. He was like top 6 or 7 for a consideration there. And I forgot. I have in my notes right here, honorable mentions, Zach Bond, Ernest Jones were the next 2 guys, and then Carson Schlesinger too was really good. I think he was short of all pro, but there we go. So, cornerback, second team, all-pro cornerback, DJ Turner and Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley is the guy so many people were offended that did not make the first team all-pro. And here's my reasoning why. So, Derek Stingley's awesome. That's why he's on this list. He's I had to ding him a little bit below those top two guys and just below those top two guys for not being as much of a lockdown player. So Derek Stingley was middle of the pack in terms of targets. He was targeted 38th out of 77 and was right around the middle of the pack for yardage allowed. He was 32nd. So with those top two first team all pros, you have targeted at a top 20th percentile, yet we're top 20th percentile. Like here's the spectrum, targeted or targeted over here, yet the yards allowed is down here. Stingley targeted here, yards allowed is down here. So you want to be on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? You're targeted a lot, but don't give up a lot of yards. Stingley was targeted a middle amount and gave up a middle amount of yards. He also was penalized 8 times this season. There was just more allowed from Derek Stingley in an elite defense, by the way, too. He's got the best pass rush in the NFL in front of him, and he's still giving up, good amount of yards. Now, he still makes all-pro here because he has game-changing ball skills and definitely needs to be on this list. I love Derek Stingley, but so he finishes with 4 interceptions this year, tied for second. He finishes tied for 8th in passes defended this year. He's also 13th in the NFL in reception percentage allowed. 52.3% is really good. Look, I think Derek Stingley's awesome. I just think the other two corners have had better lockdown seasons. And that's just, I just think we have enough data and access to tape with NFL Pro and all this stuff that we don't need to just look at interception numbers and a few highlights from a corner and let 5 or 6 plays decide who the best corners in the NFL are. I don't. So Stingley makes the list. And then DJ Turner, dude, on a dog shit defense, pardon my French, DJ Turner from the eye test to me was easily one of the best corners in the NFL, but he finishes tied for 3rd in pass breakups this year. He finishes 6th in reception percentage allowed. He had a 3-game run right when Joe Flacco was playing well. He had a 3-game run where like he alone contributed to their defense just being adequate enough for them to be in games. The Packers-Steelers games, there wasn't a corner that had a better 2-game stretch, but it expanded to the rest of the year. No one talks about DJ Turner because he's on the freaking Bengals defense. He needs credit for the year he had. When I put my list together before I started like really comparing stats, and I think I made a case for like Quinyon Mitchell and Christian Gonzalez. They were the 2 most lockdown corners from start to finish. The first name I wrote down for my all-pro list was DJ Turner needs to be on one of these teams. I'm just saying he broke out as a superstar for the Bengals this year. All right, at nickel, I have the other Eagles DB. I have Cooper DeJean making it as the other nickel corner here. This wasn't a lock because just to shout out Jalen Petrie, who had a few too many missed tackles looking back at it and gave up a little bit too much in coverage. But Jalen Petrie was awesome this year. I wish that they had 2 nickels for both teams because then I could include Jalen Petrie in there. And then Nicky Manwari, man, if he played the whole season, I think Nicky Manwari, I would even pick him over Cooper DeJean for this. But he fell just short for me because Cooper DeJean is freaking awesome. Cooper DeJean led all nickelbacks and safeties in pass breakups. His consistency at rallying and tackling in the short to intermediate game. Cooper DeJean's an all-pro player, man. He is so good. So I'm cool with that. But, man, I wish I had a spot for Jalen Petrie and Nicky Manwari. And that takes me to safety. And I could have like manipulated my rules and put either Petrie or Nicky Manwari as a safety. And I'm sure people will do that when they're making their lists. They're like, well, I just want more nickels in the all-pro, you know. That's not really how my brain works. I think if you're not a safety, I'm not going to put you there. And neither Jalen Petrie or Nicky Manwari are safeties. They're nickelbacks. They're nickel corners. The NFL needs... I'm back on my agenda for a while. I was like, we got to call them edge rushers. We got to call them edge rushers and interior D linemen. We've gotten up to date with that. Now I'm like, we need to stop. If you're a nickel, you're a nickel. If you're a safety, you're a safety. There's a pretty clear line between those guys. It's not that hard to look at the positional charting and see that Jalen Petrie and Nicky Manwari don't play safety. They play cornerback. They play slot cornerback. But anyway, I would have loved to, honestly, just make Jalen Petrie and Nicky Manwari my second team all-pro safeties. I just want to say that right now. I think those two guys had better seasons than the guys I picked for safety, but I'm stubborn in my process. And if you hate me for being stubborn, that's fine. But I wanted to pick actual safeties for safety. So my two safeties here were not easy choices. They were not. I don't think either of these guys really were all pros, but I didn't know who else to go with without, again, compromising my very stubborn mentality about nickels and safeties. But here's the guys I went. Xavier McKinney and Xavier Watts. And I know people are like, oh God, the Packers fan picked Xavier McKinney. I did not think for a second I would choose Xavier McKinney when I sat down to take notes on this. The amount of drop picks he had this year, very frustrating. The Packers secondary pisses me off to no end. But look, you can't really argue with this this list of accomplishments this year, these stats. So Xavier McKinney was tied for third among safeties in pass breakups with 8, right? Or is it 9? He had... Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. It was 9. So he was tied for third in pass breakups with 9. 7 passes broken up, 2 interceptions. He was third among safeties in missed tackle rate at 4.8%. So exceptional at being the last line of defense, the definition of the position. If he's in your area, he's getting you to the ground. He doesn't allow those extra plays. And a big part of the Packers defense is a lot of these broadcasts last month have been highlighting like how the Packers are last in run after catch. Xavier McKinney is a huge part of that. He was 9th among safeties in yards allowed, and he was tied for 4th in touchdowns allowed. Only 3 other safeties didn't allow a touchdown this year. He allowed 1. So across the board, he had ball production, top 3 in that category. He was a consistent tackler, top 3 in that category. Didn't get burnt much, was 9th in yards allowed, and was only charted with 1 touchdown allowed. Extremely consistent, very, very good player in a year that there's not a lot of clear-cut safeties, especially if you're going and taking all these nickels and saying they're not really safeties. Xavier McKinney was top 3 to 5 pretty much across the board. So again, I didn't expect to pick him, but when I put together this, like I kept finding guys and I was like, does he deserve the second team All-Pro? And it's like, no, he kind of was bad in this category. McKinney was the choice there. And then Xavier Watts, actually a really good case for second team All-Pro. So he finishes with 5 interceptions. He finishes second in pass breakups with 10. He also was a really consistent tackler. He was 15th in missed tackle percentage. He also was, I think, top 15 in TFLs. Constantly around the ball. Big impact on an underrated pass defense in Atlanta. I was actually between Xavier Watts and Jesse Bates for this. But I actually thought Xavier Watts had a more productive season. But it was really, for me, between those two Falcons guys for that last spot. The other guy that was kind of in the mix was Kalen Bullock for the Texans. But he, to me, is a little inconsistent and maybe benefits a little bit from being a piece in that Texans defense. But And yeah, Antonio Johnson, I just saw a super chat there from Garfield. He also was a name that kept popping up, but he only had 600 snaps on the year. It just didn't quite feel right. But yeah, there's your safeties. Again, I'm really excited to compare my teams to what ends up getting voted. I did not look at anybody's articles or videos on All Pros or anything. I really wanted to go in unbiased and really, I mean, I did like 4 hours of research comparing notes. I'm glad we could have some of those conversations on some of those borderline guys like Devin Lloyd and Peter Skoronski, Skornsky in the graphic there. But yeah, there's your All Pros. So let's now do the awards. And this won't take too long because I've already analyzed these guys. This is more, most of the award winners were a part of the All Pro team there. So here are, I got to put this up first and then this, and then I'm just going to drag this little graphic down. So for MVP, here, hold on. I'm going to do little video tweaking on the fly here. I'm going to put me on top of all of this so that I can switch back and forth between the graphic. Hold on. All right, there I am. And I'm gone. And I'm here, and I'm gone. All right, that works. So for MVP, I picked Stafford for first team All-Pro. I really struggle with this, dude, because in my heart of hearts, what I want to happen is I want Drake May to win first team All-Pro, and I want Matthew Stafford to get the MVP because I think it is that close. But this is another stubborn TFG thing where it's like, look, I think the first team All-Pro quarterback is the MVP. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm kind of stubborn about that, where it's like, whoever you pick, just be convicted in your pick and just go that way both ways. I do think from a fairness perspective, I love the dichotomy. I love the ability to split it up maybe and give both these guys their love. And preferably, I would like Stafford to get that MVP now while he's 38, and for Drake May to get that first team All-Pro. But I think that's the lazy way out. I got to show some spine, man. I picked Matthew Stafford for my first team All-Pro, so I'm going to pick Matthew Stafford for my MVP. Oh shoot, I'm moving the wrong thing. Hold on. Video production 101 here. Here we go. All right. There it is. Matthew Stafford, MVP. And we don't need to rehash it. Extremely tight. I do think, more impact throws and the strength of schedule for Drake May is a factor for me. But if you go either way there, I really understand it. I do. So that's my pick. I think it's about as close to 50-50 as you can get. And then for Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. No surprise there. Breaks the sack record. Insane season. No further analysis needed. Next up, I have Offensive Player of the Year. I couldn't remember what I had next. Another tough one between JSN and Puka Nacua. And I'm curious what you guys think of this one. But I did go with Puka. JSN had about 70 more yards than Puka. So I could see the case there just from a stats perspective on JSN. I just think Puka was the best offensive player in football this year. I think as amazing as JSN was and as easy of a lock as he was for all first team All-Pro, I just think Puka was the best receiver in football. The 71% contested catch rate is historic. Say what you want about PFF grade. I like their receiving grades. Puka has a 96 PFF grade. I don't know that that's like I went back the last 6 years and no one has that. I would have to go back to like, did Julio Jones have it in that year that Matt Ryan won MVP? Maybe. I can see either case, and I know JSN fans intimately at this point. If you don't say JSN is the MVP of the league, you're a JSN hater. He's got a great case for Offensive Player of the Year, but for me, Puka actually played the position at an even higher level. Better vertical threat, better contested catch winner, better run after catch weapon. Just a slight, and it's tough when these guys are clearly 1 and 2 and both have a case here. But if you have to pick one, I think Puka was the better overall receiver. And it certainly doesn't help that they're in that same division. But that's my choice. Then we have, this is supposed to be defensive. No, this is protector of the year. I'm giving it to Trent Williams for protector of the year. And I'll be honest, I don't like the name of this award, protector of the year, because that implies a bias towards pass protection. I wish they went with like blocker of the year. I don't know why it's got to be protector of the year. Because if it's the protector of the year, Garrett Bowles was the best protector. But if the award is supposed to be for the best offensive lineman, I'm going to give it to Trent Williams. Who, like we said, first team All-Pro, was like top 3 as a pass blocker and still an unbelievable run blocker. Like all of that. But I also think in this case, I don't love necessarily giving guys awards as a like lifetime achievement award. In the case of this award that was just created this year, this is the first year of Protector of the Year. A 38-year-old offensive lineman still playing at a top 3 level at worst, if not top 1 level. Someone that I an hour ago was saying we are entering a territory where Trent Williams is going to be entering the conversations of like who the best football players ever were. I'm willing to go over the line a little bit. And I don't even know that you have to go over the line for it. I think Sewell maybe had a little bit of a better year, but both were my first team All-Pro. I'm willing to go over the line a little bit for the guy that this award should have been his 5 times over by now. Let's let him have it. Penei Sewell will get it. I don't think Garrett Bowles deserves to be the best offensive lineman in the NFL this year either. So I'm going to give it to Trent Williams here. And if you hate, a slight leniency towards a lifetime achievement award there, that's your prerogative. I think because this award was literally created this year, I'm willing to do that for Trent. Then we've got Offensive Rookie of the Year, Teteroa McMillan. He was the best rookie in the league this year. If Tyler Shuck played the whole year, I would give it to him. I don't think Jackson Dart was better at his position, or Cam Ward wasn't better at his position than T-Mac was at his position, where McMillan finishes 14th in receiving yards, gets over 1,000 yards. From the very beginning, it was so clear, like, wow, the Panthers got their number 1 wide receiver. There was some drops and some moments with T-Mac where there's another step to be taken with him. But this one actually, and I am the pinnacle Tyler Shuck guy, right? I would love to sit here and pick Tyler Shuck to be the MVP or the Offensive Rookie of the Year. If anybody should do that, it is me, right? Based on what I had on him in the draft. But it's T-Mac, man. I don't know what the argument is against it. He had 1,000 receiving yards. What other rookie even had like legitimate, impressive production relative to their peers? I think some of the tight ends relative to their peers might have an argument, like Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin, and Colston Loveland. But they didn't sniff T-Mac in terms of production. So to me, it's T-Mac. And honestly, if I couldn't go T-Mac, I would give it probably to any of those three tight ends before I give it to the quarterbacks. I don't think this isn't like the MVP where it has to be a QB award, you know? So, hey, Jaron in the chat says, just give it to Membu. Armin Membu was the best offensive rookie. I don't hate the idea of just giving it to Armin Membu. It's not crazy. That might be the best argument other than T-Mac. Okay. So there's your offensive rookie of the year. Then defensive rookie of the year. Okay. Before I reveal it, I just want to preface this that this guy's not going to win it. He's not even listed in the top 6. But look, do the last I'll just reveal it. But do we just not count the last month of the season with this? Because I don't understand why Abdul Carter isn't the favorite for defensive rookie of the year. I don't understand it. Abdul Carter had a slower start to the season, but he finishes the year, Abdul Carter. I have it in my notes here. Abdul Carter finishes 11th in the NFL in pressures. He finishes 13th in pass rush win rate, and he finishes with 66 pressures on the year. To put that in perspective, the other best pass rusher from this draft, James Pierce, had 45 pressures on the season, about a third less than Abdul Carter, and was 33rd in pass rush win rate compared to Abdul Carter's 13th. Abdul Carter, by its season's end, was a top 16 edge rusher in the NFL. Extremely challenging to do. To me, we're so almost like proactive with these rookies where it's like your first 6 games, you have to like win the award. Like, I don't get, like, it's like we just forget that the last 5 weeks of football where Abdul Carter finishes the last 5 weeks with 28 pressures and 4 sacks in the last 5 weeks. And that got him into, again, like clearly better tape and better production than James Pierce, who's a great candidate for this award. The other 2 guys, I'm seeing a lot of Nicky Manwari. I'm totally fine with Nicky Manwari getting a shout out. I am. I think he was outstanding. I still think I'm taking Abdul Carter doing what he did at the edge position over Nicky Manwari, but I get it. Manwari got to play for that Seahawks defense. I love the 9 pass breakups. He was awesome. And honestly, I do think that if I didn't pick Abdul Carter, it would be Nicky Manwari. So I don't hate him getting some love there. Now, the other 2 guys that I wrote down, Carson Schwessinger is going to win the award because people are obsessed with tackle numbers. And that's going to set him over the edge. And because Schwessinger played his best football in the first 6 weeks of the season. And it was insane that he did that. And I love Carson Schwessinger. I loved him coming out. Very productive linebacker. Very good season. And I'm not going to sit here and cry that he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he played great. I still don't think it's as impressive as what Abdul Carter ended up doing this year. And then Xavier Watts as well had a lot of those impact plays at safety. He actually ended up making my all-pro list because of the safety. We don't have to rehash that, but, not looking at Emmanuel as a safety, looking at him as a nickel. Wasn't a lot of great options at safety. So Xavier Watts actually ended up making second-team all-pro for me, but I don't think, if we could just create another edge spot or whatever, like Abdul Carter would be closer, whatever. You get what I'm saying, I think. But those are my three, I get it players with Carson Schwessinger, Nick Emmanuel, and Xavier Watts. But for me, I feel like people just stopped watching the Giants. I didn't. I watched the Giants. I didn't watch yesterday, to be fair. Not yet, at least. But, dude, Abdul Carter was a freaking menace for the last month. I get if people weren't watching, I understand, but those numbers speak for themselves, man. 11th in pressures, 13th in pass rush win rate in a league where you got this many edge rushers, and he's already starting to push those numbers. And it's not just the numbers. You watch the tape, man, that spin move, the speed, the bend, the relentless pursuit. He locked in, man. And I don't get why we just ignore the last third of the season here. So we're going with Abdul Carter there. And then for sorry, I'm just looking for my little graphic here that I can move. Where'd it go? Move. There we go. All right. Comeback Player of the Year. This award's not serious. I don't know how you're supposed to vote on this award. Are you supposed to pick the fun narrative? Or are you supposed to pick the injured guy that came back? Feels like those should almost be two different awards. But yeah, Comeback Player of the Year. Look, if Joe Flacco won it a couple years, I got to vote for Phillip Rivers. Again, not a serious award, but how fun was it to see Phillip Rivers and sling the ball around? It wasn't a complete unmitigated disaster with Phillip Rivers. It wasn't. Now, for the injured player coming back, Aiden Hutchinson, dude. Aiden Hutchinson was an all-pro player. I think he played I think Aiden Hutchinson was a better overall player than Christian McCaffrey, but because of fantasy football, people will go to Christian McCaffrey. To me, it's Aiden Hutchinson. Slightly ahead of CMC if you're going with the injury guy, but dude, I just don't like this award anyway. But the very first thing I thought of was thinking back on the year, who came back and was the fun comeback story of the year? It's Phillip Rivers. So I'm going that route. I get if you want to go with more of the guy that actually played at a high level. Whichever way you want to vote, I don't really care. This award shouldn't be taken all that seriously. It really shouldn't. Then for Coach of the Year would be next, I believe. Yes. Okay. I teased it a little bit there, but if you weren't looking and you're just listening, I couldn't remember what I had next there, but all right. I really struggled with Coach of the Year this year. And I'm just going to pretend I didn't just reveal it on screen about 10 seconds ago, but Coach of the Year is historically voted on the coach that overachieved the most, right? How do you pick that this year? That's my problem. Ben Johnson on the Bears, overachieved. But did he overachieve more than Mike Vrabel, who won more games, for probably a worse roster, if we're being honest? Yeah, Ben Johnson was amazing. He also had Caleb and those receivers and the O-line and all that. Did Ben Johnson win the award over Mike Vrabel? And did Mike Vrabel win the award over Liam Cohen? And did Liam Cohen win the award over Mike McDonald? All these guys have the same exact resume, the same exact case for the overachieving team of the year. So how the fuck are you supposed to pick one of those four coaches? I have no idea. But if I just take a step back and just say, wait a minute, who was the best coach in the NFL this year? The award is Coach of the Year. Who was the best coach in the NFL this year? It's Kyle Shanahan. What are we fucking talking about? Dude, he had to go through two quarterbacks, different receiver lineup every week. By the way, he's able to get Robert Saleh back. Like, I think being coach of the year is part of putting your staff together, and that, like, he's able to get Robert Saleh back in there. It doesn't matter if Mac Jones is in there, if Purdy's in there, who's at receiver. They're putting up ridiculous numbers. They win 12 games despite the entire team falling apart. It's Kyle Shanahan. He's my coach of the year. Go cry about it. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, I'm just trying to move the graphic. There it is. Kyle Shanahan, coach of the year. If it was just one Ben Johnson or just one Liam Cohen or just one Mike Vrabel, then I would go that route. I don't know how you possibly discern between those guys and just take a step back and be like, well, Kyle Shanahan was the best coach in the league, and he happened to overachieve quite a lot as well. There weren't a lot of expectations for this Niners team coming into it. All right. The last one here, before we have a bunch of super chats to get into, is Executive of the Year. And this is where I'm going to go to John Schneider of the Seattle Seahawks. Deserves this award. Everything you can do as a GM, John Schneider freaking killed it this year. Whether it's free agency, the first part of the offseason, where he was the guy that bet on Sam Darnold. You know who didn't? Kevin O'Connell didn't bet on Sam Darnold. He's regretting that. The Raiders didn't bet on Sam Darnold. The Browns didn't bet on Sam Darnold. I don't know if the Browns had the money to do it. But the Steelers didn't bet on Sam Darnold. So many teams should have bet on Sam Darnold. The Seahawks did. Also, brings in DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency. That I even was like, obviously didn't hate the move, but I didn't think Lawrence would be like a super impactful addition. He was great. DeMarcus Lawrence was great. Then you go to the draft. They find Nicky Manwari, who you guys were probably rightfully saying, like, you're snubbing him for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, he was incredible. Don't need to rehash that. I'm sticking by my pick. But look, Nicky Manwari, they stray off the course, get Zabel in the draft. Love that. And then even like the midseason trade for Rashid Shaheed, it is John Schneider. So there are your awards in what has been a very fun episode so far. Now, we have some super chats to get to here from you guys. So I'm just going to go all the way back to the top. You guys have been incredible pouring in with the support here. So I'm going to keep going here with the stream, answering super chats and the likes. I didn't think this was going to take 2 hours, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Every time I sit down and say, oh, it's going to be an hour-long show. Turns into a 2-hour-long show. And Spatula is saying, is wondering when the playoff predictions are coming. And I will do them depending on when I have time to sit down and make them. It'll either be tomorrow night or on Wednesday. I was going to do that today, and I sat down to do it, and I was like, you know what? I really want to see some injury reports before I start picking this first round. And obviously the first round impacts how I predict the rest of the playoffs. So I wanted to just be a little bit more patient, see some of these big injury, like where some of these guys are leaning for the playoffs, and then we'll have, that'll be the next video, is playoff predictions. But, all right, the very first super chat of the night was from the Warhammer. They said Darnold was a downgrade. JSN wasn't a number one. They predicted us fourth in division. Now they say nothing. Winning in San Francisco would be the cherry on top. So not really a question, but some Seahawks love from Warhammer. So thank you, Warhammer, for the super chat. From Keith. Open the stream expecting to see a TFG give his 1A, 1B, 1C winner for every award. That's a great deep dive reference. Nope. We stuck to our guns, made some picks this year. All right, Chris Anthony says, Chiefs have no excuse out here with the best center in the whole NFL. I think they've got some other excuses, but yes, Creed Humphrey is unbelievable. And I agree from a run game perspective, you got to give them some freaking running backs, Chris. It is extremely frustrating. From Death himself, Myles Garrett being a top 5 all-time pass rusher IMO and having one playoff win is peak tragedy. Yeah, it's brutal, man. There is a part of me that would just love to see him on a championship team. I mean, top 5 all-time pass rusher. Is that selling him short? I mean, Lawrence Taylor, Aaron Donald. I think Garrett surpassed J.J. Watt. I don't think top 3 is crazy. I don't, for Myles Garrett at this point, but top 5 at least. Death himself also says, by the way, thank you for having an all-pro edge position rather than making Jack Campbell compete with DJ Watt and Nick Bonito. You got it. I feel like the actual all-pro list now has the proper positional terminology finally. Brassy says, Patrick Surtain is the second best defensive player in the league. Give him the right place on first team by default. Look, if I was making cornerback rankings, like I said, Pat Surtain is top 2. I think Christian Gonzalez is starting to build that case, but I do still have to look at the actual production and compare tape and all that. Like I said, it's a volatile position. Patrick Surtain is no different from all of the other first-team All-Pro corners of the last 20 years where there's just going to be volatility. It's just going to happen. And you have to be in the top 4 of production at the position. It's impossible to do. So I want to add that nuance that I'm not trying to take away from Pat Surtain at all. And I did consider him, but I just think there were other corners that produced at a higher level and were honestly more shutdown than Surtain, who was penalized a lot and gave up more this year than you would tend to expect from the best corner in the league. From Grim says, where are the all-pro fullbacks at? Grim is apparently a Brian Gutekunst burner account tonight. But if I had to pick an all-pro fullback, who would it be this year? Probably the Broncos guy. Caught my attention the most watching film. I can't even think of his name. But the Broncos fullback stood out a bunch this year. Or Robbie Auzz for the Seahawks was sweet too, the rookie. Sports Debater said, why do you hate Brian Burns? 2nd in sacks, 3rd in TFLs, 10th in pass rush win rate. Well, I think you said it yourself right there. The most important metric that you threw at me was pass rush win rate, where he was 10th. I would say Brian Burns is about somewhere between the 8th and 12th best edge rusher in the league. We're not trying to find the 8th to 12th best edge rusher in the league. We're trying to find the top 4, 5, 6 guys. So I don't hate Brian Burns. I don't think he's up there with the guys that we were putting together for this list. Sacks, I mean, dude, Tuli Tuipulotu was like 4th in sacks, right? Like, sacks are not the number to be looking at to decide who the top 5 to 10 edge rushers in the league are. They're just not. There's so many other better ways to do that. Brian Burns, by the way, was 20th. And Brian Burns had less pressures this year than freaking Rashawn Gary. So don't go telling me that I'm a hater on him when I still think he's a top 8 to 12 edge rusher in the league. But thank you for the super chat, my friend. Brassy says, nobody's going to call you a homer when Micah should be first team over Will Anderson. In fact, Daniil should be the Texan to make the all-pro team. I disagree there. I mean, Daniil was awesome too, man. I mean, Daniil's another guy that should make the list ahead of someone like Brian Burns. He just ran out of a spot. I mean, if I took Micah Parsons off for missing the last month of the season, I think Daniil would have been the next guy in for me. I think Will Anderson was even better. I do. But I mean, dude, you're not going to find me saying a bad word about what Daniil Hunter did this year. I think top 5 to 6 edge rusher for him. But like I said, with Will Anderson being number one in pass rush win rate, third in pressures, actually 10 more pressures than Danielle Hunter, by the way, on less pass rush snaps. He had 4 less sacks. Like, I think Will Anderson's the better player, personally. Also a good comment from Cup about Anderson as a run defender is incredible too. I agree. Okay, from Monty. Hey, Monty. How's it going, friend? Another $20 super chat from Monty, who's becoming a channel MVP here. But he disagrees that reception percentage is most important. Elite corners mostly get targeted when the wide receiver is open, usually from a pick play, coverage bust, wrongly attributed greater. IMO corner stats are mostly bad due to this. I agree with the former part of that statement. I would argue like the small sample size of like a busted coverage or a pick play or that kind of thing are still not enough to like fully skew reception percentage. But your final point says it all, Monty, that cornerback stats in general are just really tough. I mean, I was a little bummed. PFF had announced a couple years ago that they were going to come out with like a new coverage system that was going to chart like basically the percentage of plays that were tightly covered or properly covered. And they just haven't made any progress there. Because really and PFF gets a bad rap. You got to realize, and I came up through PFF, you got to realize you're talking about a team of hundreds of passionate, trained football junkies that are coming together to watch the film and come up with all of the stuff at PFF. You want to disagree with the final grades at some of the positions, I think that's fair. But if you want to talk about something advanced like that, where you've got a team coming together to watch every single snap of every corner in the league and provide a final report to you, that would be incredibly valuable. So I'm bummed that PFF hasn't gotten that yet, because I think that could be really powerful. But yeah, any cornerback stat, you're going to be able to pick some holes in. But I think reception percentage allowed is still much more valuable than just looking at the interception leaders and assuming it's those guys are the best corners. And I think that's fair. All right. From Lex, just says, love the Nicky Manwari love. Well, I'm glad I put enough Nicky Manwari love out there. Even if he wasn't my pick for defensive rookie of the year. From Garfield, we gave you a shout out earlier when we were talking about safeties. He says Antonio Johnson deserved some chatter at safety, some love. He's someone to keep an eye on for next year. I mean, Antonio Johnson definitely in 600 snaps this year was extremely productive, and I liked him coming out. Definitely someone that should be on our radars for next year that played really well in that Jacksonville defense down the stretch. Drews Box says, need Packers in Seattle. What do you think the chances that they beat the Bears? So I don't want to spoil too much for my playoff predictions video, right? We're going to really get into it here within the next 36 hours when we do that video. But I'll say this, they are 1.5 point favorites, and they did outplay the Bears for 7.8 quarters this season. They outplayed the Chicago Bears, other than their complete collapse. But we will get into it. Thank you for the super chat, Drews. Lex also came in with the super chat. I think this was when I was doing offensive player of the year and didn't pick JSN. Lex just wants to assert that JSN is offensive player of the year. I get it. I feel like the JSN bullies are going to make a lot of people back into picking JSN. It is just my honest opinion that Puka Nacua was an even better receiver. Even, yes, if JSN had another 70 receiving yards in his favor, I still think Puka edged him out in terms of the quality of play And it's not to take away from JSN. It's just what Puka did this year was one of the most impressive wide receivers I've ever seen. And he just edged out JSN in spectacularness, which probably isn't a word. But and chat, what do you guys think? Puka or JSN for Offensive Player of the Year? All right. Sports debate arena. We got that when we picked Abdul for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but he says, here's $2 for being brave and rightfully crowning Abdul as Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm glad someone agrees with me. Then we have from Death himself again. Thank you for your third super chat here. He says it's just the 4 sacks and expectations why people don't like Abdul Carter for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah, people are obsessed with sack numbers, man. There are like multiple plays, even in this run when he's been getting sacks, where he gets a quick pressure and creates a sack or a bad mistake from the quarterback. Abdul Carter we're talking about. From Garfield, if staff matters, Cohn should get credit for assembling a stud coaching staff of people doing their jobs for the first time. Yeah, in terms of organizational dysfunction, you're probably talking Jags over Patriots, Bears, and Seahawks. But I really am convicted in my Coach of the Year decision. I really am. And I wonder if I convinced any of you guys with my reasoning for it. For Cooper, how close were you with Horn and Brown? Also not an all-pro guy, but what are you from Trayvon Merrick? Ironically, Merrick I was the closest on for all-pro because the safety debate was pretty open, man. I mean, I'm not going to like die on the hill for either of my second team all-pro picks with Xavier McKinney and Xavier Watts. Trayvon Merrick was a huge impact on the Panthers defense. He did lead all safeties in TFLs, but the coverage stuff for him just isn't quite on the same level. So Merrick, just because the competition at safety wasn't as hard, actually was probably the closest. JC Horn, I have a pretty sour taste in my mouth for some of his bad games this year. He had some incredible interceptions. Horn would be in the top 8 corners. Like, I think JC Horn should be a Pro Bowler. But all pro, there were some other guys that I just think had much stronger cases. And then Derek Brown, we got into that, if you missed it. Where I kind of forgot somehow. Like, I feel like I lose my Panthers fan status when I forget to even mention Derek Brown, and it took the chat bringing him up. I think Derek Brown or Chris Jones, it's like the run defense versus the pass rush. I would value the pass rush over the run defense, but like Derek Brown for the last spot, I can totally get behind. I don't think I would put Derek Brown over Leonard Williams, and certainly not my top 2 for first team All-Pro, but I think Derek Brown has a very strong case for second team All-Pro, and I've always said he's super underrated, so it pains me a little bit to stand by my choice of Chris Jones, but I will. I'll stand by it. Chris Jones was still a really awesome pass rushing D tackle this year, even if he's not what he used to be. From Matthew says, you literally preach how hard it is to be good as a rookie linebacker. Schlesinger robbed. You're not wrong. It's a really hard position to be good early. It is. How that mixes in with like his candidacy is a little harder to decipher, if that makes sense. Like, how much do you weigh the fact that a lot of rookie linebackers don't do what he did? I don't know, man. I think what Abdul Carter, having had to watch the Giants, because it's my job, what he did in the last, it's not like he was bad to start either, right? Like, he didn't meet expectations to start. And they gave him, that coaching staff gave him some tough love and like sat him in the first quarter of stuff because the expectations are so high. But how he responded to that and how he produced down the stretch took him from like, he was in the mix for me before the last 5 weeks. I want to make that clear. I think if we voted on this week 13, it would have been Schlesinger. But Carter was in the mix and then was one of the most dominant edge rushers for the last 5 weeks of the season. And I'm gonna go with that guy. But I don't think anybody has like a runaway case at defensive rookie of the year. I think Schlesinger probably will win it, and I'm not really gonna complain about it other than just I had a different vote. But got a super chat here from Hudson. Who's your assistant coach of the year? Brian Flores. Next question. Cooper Wires says, also congrats on the kid. Yes, for those that missed the announcement, Anna and I are pregnant, having a kid, baby girl in July. We are ecstatic for that next chapter. Thank you, Cooper, for the personal note there. From TJ Williams, how close was Kamari Lassiter to making the list? He had a crazy year, but I'm not sure his lockdown stats. Yeah, I didn't really consider Lassiter, but he had a great year. A lot of ball production, a lot of targets, just because a lot of teams are going to stay away from Stingley. I like Lassiter a lot. I just don't think he's quite on the like all pro consideration for me. Any head coach hiring predictions? So thank you, Warhammer, for the super chat, but I am going to what, isn't that how you say it? If you and your wife are pregnant, don't you say we're pregnant? I guess you say we're pregnant. I don't say Anna and I are pregnant. Anna's pregnant. We're pregnant. I'm not pregnant. Jaron says, can't believe you're going to be a mother. Yeah, maybe I didn't say that right, but anyway, I will be doing a coaching carousel show, hopefully this week before we leave for Charlotte. I'm going to do the playoff prediction show, and then if I have time, like Wednesday, Thursday, to do a coaching carousel show like I love to do. So I will really get into that. I got a lot of fits on my mind. So I'm going to leave you hanging there, Warhammer, but thank you for the super chat. Fredzilla says, I can't copy and paste my previous message, but I'm a longtime fan. I apologize for the mess up. Was it a super chat? You're all good on my end because I don't remember anything too bad. But you're good. You're good, brother. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Fredzilla. Lex says, I'm going to keep bullying everyone to JSN MVP. Just wait. Hey, you and every other Ohio State fan. I'm just saying. The Ohio State hype machine cannot be contained. And naming Jackson Smith and Jigba first team All-Pro is not going to be enough for the JSN fans, and I'm well aware of that. From Eric, can you explain a little more for us, May MVP supporters, how Puka can be Offensive Player of the Year and Stafford MVP, both deserving? Just curious. I get what you're saying. I do. And I like a good supporting cast debate as much as anybody for MVP. I think it's, I guess, whatever answer I give you is not going to sway those of you that are voting for Drake May for MVP. And again, I don't have any problem with anybody picking Drake May out of this. And there's no doubt that Stafford's surrounding cast was better than Drake May. But I don't think the Patriots' surrounding cast was bad. I think there's a difference between on paper heading into the year versus being realistic about what they actually got from their surrounding cast. The Patriots' offensive line was actually really quite good. From a pass blocking standpoint, right on par with the Rams, honestly. Will Campbell goes down in the last month, and they've taken a slight step back. But even the backup left tackle there, it's got to be Vidarian Lowe, right? I feel like he's played okay. Is that crazy? I haven't actually looked into this until now, but just having watched the Patriots, I feel like Vidarian Lowe is actually, Vidarian Lowe is a 67 pass block grade. Like, he's been actually very adequate. So, like, on paper, obviously, you didn't look at the Patriots roster, but the offensive line's actually been pretty good. The Rams definitely have a better run game, I'll give you that. But the Patriots receivers at large have actually been freaking awesome, man. Like, Stephon Diggs, it sounds crazy to say this, but Stephon Diggs was like a top 10 wide receiver this year. There wasn't a ton of amazing performances from wide receivers, but I've seen some people shout out Stephon Diggs as a second-team All-Pro candidate, and I don't think it's crazy. Keyshawn Boutte was really good. You had Demario Douglas was really good. Both tight ends were really good. Like, I would still rather have the Rams situation with Adams and Puka, but Drake May had more good weapons. Like, Drake May had like 6 legitimate places to go with the football that were reliable. So I really don't think Drake May's situation ended up being like this, like previous cases for like Josh Allen not really having receivers, or like Aaron Rodgers back when it was like Devontae Adams and nobody else, or even before that. Like, I think there's other things you can look at where it's like they had more of a surrounding cast bad argument, even though, the Rams were ahead of Drake May. But like I said, I think Stafford's eye test, level that he played at the position, factored in with the level of competition being so much worse for Drake May, I lean towards Stafford. But it's a tough debate, man, and a very fascinating one, and I get either side of the coin. But thank you, Eric, for the super chat there. From Garrett Gorski, vote for scapegoat of the year. Dable, Patullo, or Steichen? Wait, Steichen? Don't tell me Shane Steichen got like fired when we were doing this. I don't know about Steichen as a... I don't know about Steichen as a scapegoat. Not sure what you're saying with that one, but I love the question. It's got to be Brian Daboll for scapegoat of the year, especially after they kept the GM. It's got to be that, or Steve Wilkes is another great scapegoat of the year with Aaron Glenn firing the defensive coordinator 12 weeks in. I might even have to go with that being a little more pathetic. Like, dude, you're the defensive coach. What are we talking about? You firing Steve Wilkes so quickly. That one was pretty crazy. Monty coming back again. Love you, Monty. So we were having that discourse about cornerback stats and what matters. He says, I 100% agree. I need proper every snap PFF coverage grades. Because right now, for those that don't know, I don't love the PFF coverage grades right now. Like, I will defend some coverage grades, and I will say others are faulty, and that's just understanding the process. And even people inside PFF will tell you they don't really value the coverage grades, because all the PFF coverage grades is they only grade coverage plays when you're targeted, which is an extremely faulty process, and they know that. They're trying to improve it, but it's just a matter of resources. So of all of the coverage grades, PFF coverage grades, typically it's like either like it's good if you're in the 85 plus elite territory, you're probably doing something right. And if you're in the red, you're definitely doing something wrong. Like I'll say that if you have a bad coverage grade, you're doing something wrong because you're being targeted because you're registering negative plays. You're being targeted because you're open and you're not producing positive results on those targets. So if you're in the red for a coverage grade, you know it's bad, but that's about all you can say. So Monty continued to say, also reception percentage is definitely better than interceptions, but voters are lame. Surtain doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year without the 98-yard pick six last year. Yeah, you're right. Fred Zilla says, Broncos fan wondering about Benito and Zach Allen. We talked about Zach Allen in there. I like Zach Allen. I still think the volume is an interesting debate with him because he plays so much more than everybody else. And I think it's like a boon and a boondoggle. It's one of my favorite terms. Like, it's a good thing that he's available. The best ability is availability. That's a plus. But if you're debating like how good is he, you can hold his total numbers against him a little bit because from an efficiency standpoint, he's just not quite on that all-pro level. He's close. I think, like he's probably like this stupid saying. He is somewhere between my 6th and 8th choice for the best defensive tackles in the league this year for Zach Allen. Nick Bonito, really good season. Again, like there's just edge rushers doing some crazy shit right now. I think Bonito, I still would put Bonito like probably behind like Danielle Hunter, behind Aiden Hutchinson, behind Micah Parsons, Will Anderson, and Myles Garrett, obviously. Benito's in that 6 to 9 range, 7 to 9 range. But the fact that they have all these guys is pretty damn crazy. From Towley, good old South Park reference. And this is Towley Ban. I am also anti-Towley, not a big Towley fan. Least favorite character in South Park. But just showing in with some love, $5 super chat. Was just now able to join, but I'm assuming Marcus voted Bo Nix for MVP. Yeah, that was our vote for MVP. From Sheldon, this is my final super chat here. And then I do have a few mailbag questions, and then I can wrap this thing up. That has been an incredible 3-hour stream. Didn't think it would go this long, but hey, if you guys are here and loving the stream and things are going well, why not? But Sheldon Wong says, could that not apply to wide receiver PFF grades being shit who only get graded when they get a catchable target? In my experience, just in having been around it for so long, in my experience, the receiving grades much more often match the eye test and how I feel about receivers and what I think I'm seeing. So I'll say that. I think it's a little bit different as well in terms of like getting targeted as a receiver versus getting targeted as a corner, I guess. I don't know if I have a better way to explain that, but you're not wrong. Like there's some faultiness to PFF receiving grades where you're not if you work a corner on a route and you're on the backside of the play and Justin Fields is your quarterback and he has no interest in looking at you at all, you should be getting a positive grade for that play that you're not getting. Like, there's definitely some missing components of the receiver grades. Like, you're absolutely onto something, but I do still think that the receiver grades typically line up much more often in my mind when I cross compare what I just watched. Okay. If I get any more super chats, I'll circle back to them at the very end here, but I do have just a few mailbag questions, so let's rip these off. And these are from my amazing supporters on Patreon. So just real quick Patreon plug, I guess. I just recently made that official change over there where the bottom tier on Patreon has gone from $1 to $2.50. Inflation's getting us all, guys. But a big reason for that tier jump increase is that Studs and Duds, my Studs and Duds series, will be moving to Patreon at that $2.50 tier. And that is all set up now as a benefit. But you also can submit questions for the mailbag there on Patreon. And that is where these 6 questions came from. So let's go through these. And I'm going to pull it up on a bigger screen on my end so I don't have to squint to read this. But from Keith, do you think the Lions' defensive struggles are more of a personnel issue or a scheme issue? And he elaborates, but just for the sake of time, I feel good about answering that question. For me, it's more on the scheme side of things. I think their personnel issues are secondary because I think it's really challenging, especially when you don't have a bunch of cap space and you're picking in the 20s. It's really challenging to build a defense like what the Browns have, for example, a defense that can hold up running cover one as much as anybody in the league. It's really hard to do that. You definitely need a shutdown corner, which is really hard to get. If they wanted that and they wanted to run this system, even though I just put Jack Campbell as a first-team all-pro linebacker, if they really wanted to be determined to run this, they should have found a way to get Christian Gonzalez in that draft. Because those are the types of guys that you need to be able to run man coverage at a high level, not Terrion Arnold, who's available in the 20s for a reason, not DJ Reed, who's available in free agency for a reason. Nice players or nice prospects and all that, but I see it as more of a unrealistic determination to play the style that they want, and that's more of an issue for me. But it goes hand in hand. If they were able to magically have the right personnel to run the man coverage they want to run, that'd be great. But I think you got to be realistic at some point. Next question from Zach Haynes. Is Jim Bob Cooter the perfect head coach candidate for the Browns? Replace Stefanski, Cooter was given his first offensive coach job on the Lions at 31 under Jim Schwartz. Retained Schwartz as DC, let him manage the defense, and let Jim Bob Cooter run the offense, basically, and decide what he wants to do at QB. I like it. I like that as a candidate. I think it makes a ton of sense. I love the connection with Jim Schwartz. I think Jim Bob Cooter, like you said, 31 years old when he got his first crack. What he's been doing in Indianapolis is obviously under Shane Steichen, so it's hard to know how much he gets credit for, but I love the idea of more coaches being in the Shane Steichen scheme. I think that's better for Shedeur. I like Shedeur and more of that spread style. I think that fits his skill set better. I think I don't think the personnel is quite right, other than Harold Fanton, who's a great 12 personnel for a Shanahan-style system. I'm a little worried, by the way, if the Browns are going to leave the Shanahan coaching family. I'm a little worried that our guy Harold Fanton's going to be in the right spot. Something to keep an eye on, because Fanton's got to kind of specifically be that like wing tight end, Jawan Jennings role. A good coach will find a way to use a good player, but it's something to think about. and see where that goes. But I like the suggestion, Keith. I think I like where your head's at in a year where there's not a lot of great offensive candidates. I think that's a good swing to take. Then we got from Josh. This wasn't actually a mailbag question, but I wanted to make it one just to kind of talk about it real quick. Interesting stat for you. You were right about Jackson Dart's pocket presence and feel coming out. He has the highest pressure. Dart has the highest QB allowed pressure rate in the NFL. Next highest is Shedeur. Oh, QB allowed pressure. Who you would think mobile QBs would result in a higher rate, but it's not the case. Caleb 17%, Herbert 17, Jaden 16, Lawrence 14, Fields 13, Baker 9. Interesting. So they're saying that Jackson Dart is bailing out of clean pockets, creating pressure where there isn't at 37%. I've never actually gone in and looked at that stat. I like that. And Shedeur at 29% is not surprising. That's a very interesting note. I feel like Dart's spatial awareness in terms of like eluding sacks and stepping in the right place when he needs to has been pretty good, and extending plays when he, maybe this stat is counter to that. But I feel like there's been some good moments with Jackson Dart's pocket presence that have impressed me. But there has been some bailing out of clean pockets and stuff, and that definitely is concerning. So as I get to rewatching Dart this offseason, that's definitely something to keep in mind. From Young Sway Lee, 2 questions. Is the NFL genuinely evolving schematically, or is it more recycling the same offensive and defensive ideas under different coaches? So I'll answer that first. Yes, it is evolving. The rise in 2-shell defenses, this kind of Mike McDonald evolution of the Vic Fangio defense. The NFL is always zigging while the other side zags, and it is evolving. We're seeing less dynamic passing games. We're seeing more run game. Everything that people say about 2-shell, disguised coverages, the kind of core Fangio defense that has evolved into a couple different, the solid tree and the McDonald tree as well. It's real. The NFL is certainly evolving. And then what do recent head coach hires say about what NFL owners value most right now? Innovation, quarterback development, or culture building? I don't think there's a correct answer there. I think that varies team to team. I think some teams have clearly put an emphasis on the culture building aspect of things, trying to be, I think what NFL owners value most is looking at what they think works and trying to replicate it. So some teams trying to replicate the Dan Campbell thing. So whether that's with John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers, and then the subsequent hire of, I would certainly say that Pete Carroll, the Raiders were trying to replicate the culture building aspect. I would argue a large reason for the Jets going with Aaron Glenn is they thought he would be their Dan Campbell. Don't know if that was the right decision there, but I think a lot of teams value that. And obviously a lot of teams value the young offensive coordinator, the QB guru, Kellen Moore, Liam Cohen. I would say that most teams probably would lean that route, but and some teams are going to look at what Mike McDonald has done and try to recreate that. Like it just ebbs and flows. All right, 2 more questions here, and then we can finally be on our way, and I can go play some Arc Raiders with my boys before bed, and then we're back at it tomorrow for the predictions show. But Julian says, what are your thoughts on the Malcolm Roach and John Franklin Myers situation? It seems like they're letting JFM walk, having already paid Zach Allen, DJ Jones, and now giving Malcolm Roach 3 years, $29 million. Do you agree with this process? Is it an overpay for Roach? So I didn't realize they extended Roach. This is new information to me. My initial impression on this is that they would probably release DJ Jones and find a way to keep John Franklin Myers, because I feel like Roach is more of the DJ Jones replacement. whereas John Franklin Myers is just a different role. DJ Jones turns 31. You can absolutely get out of his contract. You can save $10 million by releasing him. He's a $14 million cap hit in the final year of his deal next year. So, Julian, that's my thought on that, is that they're setting up to release DJ Jones and find a way to make it work with JFM. We'll see how it plays out, though, because I agree, paying Roach to let John Franklin Myers go would not make sense. But we'll see which direction that goes. All right. From Dylan, who do you think are the organizations/players that have the most to gain from a Super Bowl win this year? This is a fun question to end on. I feel like there are a lot of teams playing with house money this year, but obviously the 49ers, Steelers, and Bills have been at it for a while and haven't had the success in February. Yeah, I think like Steelers don't really have those legitimate expectations. The Niners are kind of a year ahead probably. So I don't think there's a ton to gain from those or lose really. I definitely think of the Bills, number one. I guess your question was the most to gain. But I definitely think the Bills have the most to lose. Like, whether you like it or not, the narrative is going to be all the quarterbacks are out. Go freaking win it. Especially for Sean McDermott, in my opinion. I think some of that's a fluffy, unfair narrative, but some of it I think is absolutely justified. And you guys know my thoughts on Sean McDermott. So I'd say the Bills. I think the Eagles, in terms of having a lot to lose as well, I've talked about this where like they're still going to be great, but their window is going to get harder and harder to keep open the more years go on, especially if Lane Johnson is going to keep getting banged up. But they got a lot of guys to pay. Jalen Hurts is just now starting to get somewhat expensive with that crazy backloaded contract they gave him. Jalen Carter is going to need an extension. Jordan Davis is going to need an extension. We're not too far removed from those corners asking for new money. Both guys made my All-Pro team here. So I think Eagles and Bills, from a window perspective, this is a year of a lot to lose. I think most to gain, I look at the young quarterbacks in a playoff scenario where no Mahomes, no Lamar, no Burrow. So I look at all the young quarterbacks, and I would include Jordan Love in that too. But I think, Drake May, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, these unproven quarterbacks have the most to gain. If any of these guys can get hot and go on a run, any number of them are going to create some, to differing degrees, very interesting conversations. Is Drake May in that tier one? Can CJ Stroud start to kind of recreate that hype? Trevor Lawrence, I think, can start to create some of those narratives. Jordan Love, is he more of a tier 2 quarterback as opposed to a tier 3 quarterback? All these guys, Caleb Williams, another one. All these guys have a lot to gain. A lot of exciting young quarterbacks with opportunities in these playoffs. And that, my friends, I think, is the perfect stopping point. We are just about to hit 3 hours. No more super chats. No more mailbag questions. No more all-pro spots to allocate. We did it. Hope you guys don't mind this show going so long, but we still got over 300 of you guys still here. And this was a really, really awesome show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for all the commentary. And I'm out of here. I got nothing else. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and I will see you for my playoff predictions show within the next couple days. Cheers, everybody.